everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Friends Per Second. You know, this is really not going to land for people who are just listening.
Well, that's their own fault, isn't it? They should be on the YouTube channel for this moment. That's on them.
Lucy, I love what you've done with your hair. I love what you've done with your hair. It's amazing.
Thank you. I let it air dry today instead of using a hairdryer.
Uh-huh.
Do you like when you jean jacket?
I do. It's a very Lucy jean jacket. Yes, I've seen you wear that jacket multiple times.
Is your shit t-shirt like filthy though? Like, is it really? You did a hair flick just then? That's a great hair flick. Is your shirt like really filthy? What happened to your shirt exactly? Can I ask, Lucy?
Apparently, it took like a year to come together, and so I just haven't had a chance to do laundry yet.
So you've been wearing that shirt for a year, essentially.
Yes.
Is what you're saying. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
So that's where all your gamer color has kind of gone into your shirt. It's just kind of baked in there now. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
as a gamer, and not necessarily a puppeteer yet.
Keyword yet.
I haven't had a chance to do my laundry. Instead, I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3.
Understandable.
You look like someone who's been playing Baldur's Gate 3 the last couple of days. Yes.
If this was a performance roll, if this is a performance roll check, what number are we scoring this? Is this like a 2 roll? This is like a 25 roll in my view. This is what this is, right? I'm buying it 100%.
I have a guidance roll that I can do to improve my stats, but I still think my puppeteering needs a few more points in it.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Well,
I think you can get up, Lucy. We appreciate it.
The hair flicks, though, I can't get enough of them. Please, we need to make. Can you do the actual hair flicks when you come back up? Like, that's right. All right, I think that was perfect. Yes, exactly.
The double hair flick was brilliant.
It was.
It's so awesome. It was my birthday gift from Tam.
Wait, okay. So first of all, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Number one.
Happy
and
birthday.
Secondly, what possessed Tam to get you a puppet for your birthday? Like, what was the thought process that went into that sort of gift?
I don't know, because and I say that like because I love it, because it is genuinely the most unique gift I've ever received. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my God, that's me. I've never seen myself be immortalized in fabric in such a way. But our friend Mikey at Obsidian has a puppet of himself, like knows a puppeteering place. And I think that's how Tam got this. Because you know who else has a puppet? Jake 2.
Jim Henson. Jake 2. Okay, also Jake 2, sure.
Also has a puppet of himself.
Right.
And so, yeah, this one... like the goofs that I will get with as puppet. But it's also, it's genuinely, as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's me.
It is. No, that you just, as soon as you brought it
cool.
out, is immediately like, oh, I see Tam bought a puppet of Lucy. It didn't even need to be explained. I was like, it's puppet Lucy, 100%.
Yeah. And it's also like, it's super well made. It's
looks like a quality product.
Yeah.
That should be a business. They're probably like, if
think
this
it
was
is
an online thing, but I mean like a proper thing that was being advertised by YouTubers or whatever, and it hits the mainstream, like everyone's buying puppets for their friends.
Puppets?
Like, puppets.
we should invite the puppets of all puppets on the show. Arlo, have you guys seen Arlo before?
Course,
yeah,
of course.
Arlo,
Totally.
Arlo's a homie. We should. I mean, I don't know if he can.
Oh.
He might get
Too
tired
small.
talking for a half an hour or so. We should see if Arlo wants to be on the show.
I think that'll be very cool. And then we could all have our own puppets and we just converse that way for 30 minutes.
So I will say,
Patreon.
my arm, because I was on the ground behind the scenes, Jim Henson never had to deal with this shit. No, because I was on the ground there, my arm actually does hurt, but that's obviously because I'm weak.
Just, you can make an occupational health and safety claim.
Yeah.
Just,
Lucy, next time you're in the States or next time you're in LA, we'll have to get Zan, because Zan was a former puppeteer at Downtown Disney Junior. And so he did it for many, many years. And so he'll teach you all about how to use the puppet.
Please, I would love to. Like, it's one of those things that's like never crossed my mind in my life that I would have a puppet. But now I just kind of want to learn how to use it.
Is Peanuts Is Peanut at all confused by the puppet? Is Peanut like the cat? Is it like
She's fine.
She's fine with the puppet. Okay.
She's like, oh great, another roommate.
Can we get a suite of puppets like all of us? But can I have a ventriloquist dummy just so it's like creepy and horrifying instead?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Like,
you would, wouldn't you? I can totally see that.
Miyamoto into a puppet and like Bill Trinan and Reggie.
For Star Fox, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. That was cool. That was very cool.
So we can have our own version.
All right, let's get some puppets, people. We'll do a puppet show at PAX one time. It'll be a panel. It'll be the PAX puppet panel featuring the frames per second.
We're charging admission,
charging big ticket prices, like Taylor Swift prices, man. That's what we're going to do.
Oh, yeah. We're 7 days sold out in Los Angeles ticket prices. Oh, yeah.
This is our era's tour, seriously? Okay? My era is the puppet era.
Yep.
Yeah,
are we what's this podcast about again? I forget now.
Friends hanging out. That's what we do.
It's about Baldur's Gate and puppets. I like it. I liked it. We should rename it. I like it.
I mean, Ralph, you're back after a month away. Don't ever leave us again.
You guys, I listened to the last episode. It was all the better for my absence. Absolutely crushed it. And I was really nice because it's the first episode that I missed. And it was really nice just listening to the podcast without being a part of it. As opposed to like, you're always listening back to you're like, should I have said that? You're proofreading. And I was like, I'm just going to listen to this, and really enjoyed you guys chatting. And it was really fun, and really enjoyed the interview with Sven Vinky, correct? That's his name. Yes. I always mispronounce it. I'm like, it's Sven Winky or something. I just get it wrong every time I say it. But yeah, he was really awesome guest, and like just so interesting to hear his insights into Baldur's Gate and all that sort of shit. So yeah, it was really nice being able to do that while I was traveling, having you guys in my ear. It was fun.
Yeah, it was nice to talk to him too. It was very
he was awesome.
I think it's nice just talking to people who work on the other side, like in games, because we're all a bunch of freaks, and the people who make games are just normal, real, rational people. And it's nice to hear them just like legitimately talk about their work. And I think that kind of resonated with people. I mean, Reddit, some people on Reddit were like mad that we didn't like yell at him, but the game wasn't even out at that point. So
wait, what
are we going to yell at him for?
Wait, which conversations were these? Where were these conversations? First of all,
who on Reddit?
Which subreddits? Which subreddits? What, the Baldur's Gate subreddit?
No, the bad ones.
Oh no.
Like what? Like PC gaming?
I'll just leave it at that.
All right. Okay. Fair enough.
I don't want to. I understand, Jake. We don't want to get in fights anymore. We're just trying to talk about games.
Dude, fighting with Reddit is like a pastime, man. Come on now. It's fun.
No.
I just.
But I don't understand how you could be mad about that interview though, because he was really great and he just said lots of stuff. Why would anyone want to yell at him though? What has Baldur's Gate 3 done wrong? I don't understand.
Well, the game came out. It's a success and it's going great. So what happened?
It's too horny, according to some people. Which I
it is very horny.
Yeah,
though. I never said it was too horny. I just said it is very horny. I never commented that it was too horny. I just said it was very horny.
But you posted it on social media, so I'm going to misinterpret your words in bad faith.
Right. So. Like the waffle tweet. It's exactly that. So
the waffle tweet.
That sounds too.
No, the
online.
one that's like it's like the one with it's that famous tweet where it's like you know, you could say, oh
yes.
I like this Twitter's the only app where people just take what you say out of context. You could say, oh, I like pancakes. And then someone else would say, oh, what? So you hate waffles? No, bitch, that's a whole other sentence. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like that tweet. You haven't seen that tweet?
No. When you said, I didn't clock that it was immediately about waffles, but when you described it that way, I was like, oh, yes.
Yeah, I've heard that
That's
one. I like the way you describe it better.
I did see a good tweet today, which was, I think all the time about leaving this website, but this was the first thing I saw when I logged in today, and we're never leaving. And it was a picture of a shark with big tits. And it just said, sharks if they slayed. And I was like, it's right, we're never leaving. We're never leaving. Twitter has broken us so much that I laughed at that so hard.
It's so true.
Anyway. This is a podcast about video games.
Sometimes.
Fun show today because we're going to be talking obviously about Baldur's Gate 3. I know Ralph, Jake, and I have been putting in a lot of time, a worrying amount of time. We're all kind of sad that we're not playing it right now, but we're happy to be here among friends to talk about it.
Yes.
We are also going to be chatting about what is our game of the year so far, because up until Baldur's Gate 3, it seemed like Zelda had it locked, and then bam, that 97 Met score. We've also got an interview with the Wayfinders team, which I'm excited to see because I sadly wasn't there for that one. Then we've got a couple of user questions, and we'll be talking about what we've been playing. So it's a big packed show. Good meaty one. All right, let's get into it then. Baldur's Gate. How many hours is everyone in so far?
So I'm like, my Steam thing says that I'm 22 hours in, and I've just hit the first goblin camp in the first zone. Okay,
Jesus.
Which anyone that's yeah, I know, right? So I'm pretty sure that a good chunk of that is like I've paused the game and stepped away and done other things, but like not that much. I haven't been away from the computer that much, so I reckon I'm realistically about 15 hours in, and I've just hit the first goblin area. I am taking it so slow. Like I am just every single nook and cranny, every single opportunity, every like piece of loot that I can pick up, everything that I can do, I'm doing it right now. And I'm just having the best time. That it does not feel at all like 20, however many hours have gone by. It just feels like it's still my very first session booting it up within the first 2 or 3 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
like
how many hours are you guys
weird.
at?
Everything's weird, and like you can just keep kind of stumbling upon things. It's got that. It's a perfect example of like dense, not massive open world, but a good sized world that is dense with actual interesting things.
How far are you guys in?
Like 20 hours.
I hit 30.
Okay.
According to Steam. I had a few hours in early access though. So I would say like 23, 24 maybe in the last week or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I played a lot. I've been kind of sick this week, so I have played a lot. It's been great. I am well beyond the Goblin Camp. I'm following the Githyanki stuff now.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've gone to a different
map.
area. Yeah, different map.
Right. Okay, cool.
I have played 0 hours.
Okay.
How are you feeling about that?
Why-
Because it's like all everyone is talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, good question.
He's busy.
I'm okay.
He's
I'm
working on
okay
stuff.
being on my own little island. I'm good, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm look, I know we joke that I don't get game codes. I don't get game codes very often compared to the three of you guys. But in the last month, I've gotten game codes for games that I feel like no one is really all that hype on. And so I've just been enjoying those games and trying to get content ready for those. I had Illusion Island last week.
Sure.
I did have a video prepared for WrestleQuest, but that got delayed. So now
Because the game got delayed?
because the game got delayed. Yeah, my video's done, but I didn't want to break completionist embargo, which is my own embargo of I ruin a lot of the game for folks, and I don't want them to not watch the video because the game isn't out yet. And then I got another code for a big RPG that everyone's very excited about, but I can't say that I have the code, so I'll talk to you guys about it between the break or the podcast. I'm starting that. I started that yesterday, and that's a biggins. So I kind of had to decide to myself.
Everyone's thinking it's Starfield, by the way.
It's not Starfield.
Okay, I was going to say, because everyone,
It's
when you're
not
saying this,
Starfield.
everyone is like, what? Starfield review code is out? Like,
It's
that's going to
not-
be...
Yeah, we were
It's
even
not
talking about this
Starfield.
earlier.
I think I actually know what you're talking about now, but yes, I don't think many people will guess.
my tie to the developers is extremely strong. So I was a big part of their journey into their game getting their first game getting publicly seen, and so in the second one I supported it a lot, and I'm a Kickstarter backer and stuff like that. So but it's a big ass RPG that is coming out right in the middle of the Starfield and all of the Cyberpunk. Like there's too many games, you guys. That's the true problem. There's too many games.
Sure.
And I looked at Baldur's Gate 3 and I said, hey, I'm so happy that everyone loves it. I am going to just put this away in the I will get to it when I get to it vibe and focus on everything else I got going on, because there's just too many games.
I was gonna say I also would not like you to do a completionist run because I don't think it's physically possible.
I think it's actually impossible.
I think it's a game you just play.
Yeah, I'm trying really hard to like accept that some games don't need to be content and I can just play them when I want to play them. And if not, that's okay. I'll get to it someday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue your Baldur's Gate conversation. Did not mean to.
Oh,
How are
no.
you guys playing? I'm making sure to like kind of always just go with whatever happens in the game, whatever the dice roll happens. I die a lot in combat and I have to like reload that. But other than that, I'm rolling with my fuck ups and it's really fun. That's been the most satisfying thing to me so far, is just seeing how many weird things the game can throw at me after trying something weird or saying the wrong thing or screwing up a dice roll. And it's really nice for that. That's where like it kind of feels like there's that video game magic to me where I'm like, wow, holy shit, another surprise. Like it just keeps, not to sound like too hype man-y, but you know, yeah.
I think that's like, because I feel like we're still operating at this part of the conversation at the very top level.
Yeah.
But I actually have like a lot of thoughts about that specific thing about trusting the dice roll and how that works in this game versus something like Disco Elysium, where I think you can actually just fully surrender yourself to the dice roll in Disco Elysium and it's fine. And you are going to...
there's one check that you absolutely cannot.
Oh, sure.
That bullshit one at the end. You have to keep re-rolling.
But other than that, you can actually just, if you fail every single dice roll in that game, you will still go through that game and it will still be wonderful, right? Mm-hmm. Versus this being a more classic CRPG and a D&D game, it's a very different equation when like you're walking along through a cave and your perception checks fail and all of a sudden you walk through 10 different mines and then you're like, wow, I guess I'm dead. I have to reload now. And it's kind of like that's the part where the dice roll doesn't quite work in as well as it should. But then other people would be like, no, that's exactly how it should work because that's the end of your story. And then you just have to reload it. It's kind of like, well, what if there was some other way? I don't know. And again, I don't have definitive, like, here's how it should be with this. I just know that I am definitely reloading saves. And I wonder how they could have avoided that in certain instances. It doesn't happen often. I really am trusting the dice roll most of the time. But definitely sometimes I'm like, that really was annoying, wasn't it? Oh, well, guess I'll reload my game. I feel like a lot of the agency is just taken. Yeah, a lot of the agency is just taken away from me unexpectedly or unfairly. And it just produces some like frustrating outcomes. And then you just have to reload. And it's not a big deal to reload because you can reload at any time. You just hit the F8 key, boom. You're straight back in, no delays whatsoever. It's fine. But I always just think about it from that game perspective, that design perspective, where it's like, well, how could they have avoided this? And I don't think they could have in the world of D&D because that's just how that works. But certainly Disco Elysium, with the way it's built, managed to find a way where you didn't need to do that, if that makes sense.
I would hit the wall the most when it would start. I don't know. I would do something wrong, and then I was trying to avoid combat, and then I got thrown into combat where I was super unprepared and I'm like a stealthy character and I had no opportunity to do so. And I'm like, oh shit, I guess I'm dead. So it's not perfect, but I like it the most in conversation.
Differently.
Yeah.
How have you played it then, Luce?
I'm not getting that at all because one of my characters has like super high perception.
Right.
So as long as like, I always check that it's like, as long as that character, like my character has seen stuff, or if it hasn't, or if like Astarion or someone, I swap to them. Sure. And then I ungroup everyone, I move everyone through, or I disarm traps, and if I feel like I'm getting to an area where there's gonna be combat, I hold down on the controller and everyone crouches and you can see the vision cone stuff.
I see that too, yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like I've maybe just adapted because some of that was in like the lower levels for me, and then I kind of got more and more used to the game because that goblin camp you mentioned, Ralph.
Yes.
You can do things in there. The first time I went there, I intimidated my way in, and everyone was like, "Wait, come on in! It's great. We're having a party." And then I did something, and the entire camp turned on me, and I think that was the training point for me where I took on the entire camp and won. and didn't call like reinforcements or anything, which you can do. There are some reinforcements you can find.
I got those guys as well.
Yeah.
Those bastards.
And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. And I think at that point, like positioning became, it all kind of locked into place. I feel like it didn't until that moment. But yeah, it's got me thinking in, you know, like I tweeted this out earlier and then like it's really funny because people are just posting the way that they've been doing solutions and stuff, is that Astarion for me, his cantrip is put grease on the ground. So every time I'm about to go into combat, or if I sneak in as him, I put grease on like stairs, or there's like a little bridge and you can put grease on like the narrowest part of it. So to get to my guys, they have to walk on the grease. They fall over a lot, or you can set it on fire.
Yes.
And it's basically just like chaining stuff up. I changed class, actually. I was a source.
So you're just pre-greasing everywhere you go? What if you walk in somewhere, you put grease everywhere, and then you make friends with them?
Grease me up, woman.
Grease me up, woman. That's my greasing and shoving. That's what I've been doing. I've just been shoving people over.
The old greasy shove. I love it.
Shove as a bonus action is unbelievable because, yeah, you knock them down flat on their ass. And then if someone else, there are some abilities that like do more damage if someone's prone, so it's like, yeah, it's great. And I've never thought about a combat encounter in a game that way before because I played D&D. We tried to last year, and it was such a shame because like scheduling wise it just was an absolute mess and we couldn't really get together. And I didn't really play much of Divinity at all because I was very overwhelmed by it. But 3 years in early access for this one, it means that there's already like a bunch of resources available. I played a bunch of early access when it first came out. And like, I feel like I'm in 4D chess now. It's great.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I think I'm still learning all of those things. And I think part of what's so incredible about this game is just how many of those things there are. I think when we think about discovery in games, we talk about like, oh, what's over there on the horizon? Like, oh, I found a new bandit camp I can clear out. That's cool. Or I discovered this NPC who can give me a quest. That's discovery, right? And this is a whole other dimension of discovery where we're actually discovering what the game systems are capable of. And that's so exceedingly rare that any game is able to produce that. And interestingly enough, one other game did that this year, and it also is the highest rated game of the year, Tears of the Kingdom. Whereas so much of what made that game special was discovering what you could do with the game systems, because you see them and then you're like, oh, cool, that's fun. I can build a little car, and then fast forward like, 3 weeks of TikTok later, you have people building functional Metal Gears like that they can steer and walk around in and all this sort of shit, right? So yeah, I think it's just so rare and so special when any game allows you to explore and discover its systems the same way you can explore and discover its geography or its narrative. And it's, that's, I think, so far the most incredible thing that I'm encountering as I'm going through it all.
Can I ask you guys a question real quick?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just want to ask a quick question because I'm very foreign to this style of RPG. I played Dark Alliance on the PS2. That was what was in my head, the Diablo 2-esque version of Baldur's Gate.
That was me.
Which I loved. I loved that game.
Yeah,
me too. It was sick.
And I played the original Baldur's Gate on PC back in the day. I loved the character. I forget his name, but he had like the bald head with the cool scar. Yeah, that dude, like, when I think about the game and the brand, the franchise, that is the person I think of all the time. How many Baldur's Gate games have there been in the last few decades? 1, 2, maybe?
Well, they also had recently that Dark Alliance game, the really bad one.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
But that was technically Dungeons and Dragons, not Baldur's Gate, even though it is owned by the same company, right? So
you're right.
This Baldur's Gate 3 being like the third out of technically the canonical 1 and 2, despite side games and such or whatever it may be. Do you think that everyone, this is me asking stupid questions just because I don't know. Do you think everyone's so excited about it, not only because it's like one of the first true good vibe feeling D&D games authorized and licensed by the guys who make D&D, Or is it like, hey, this is a return to form from a game from all of our childhoods, and a lot of people have never played it before, and this is their first time experiencing it, like kind of like how everyone's first Final Fantasy now has been Final Fantasy 16 or whatever it may be. Like, what's your guys' vibe on that?
I think in terms of when it's coming out now, you can sort of pinpoint, hate to say it, but it is at least partially true, a really big resurgence in D&D because of Stranger Things. And then Critical Role. Like, at least within the public consciousness, mainstream wise.
And Chris Pine. I'm sorry, the movie.
Chris Pine. Oh yeah, Chris Pine the movie. But you know, like, certainly there was a shot in the arm. Not to say that D&D ever went away, but you know, you had this moment where Stranger Things was happening. It's like, oh my god, the kids play D&D, blah blah blah. And then Critical Role got absolutely massive. Ox Venture as well, huge. A lot of D&D, like tabletop role playing games, huge on video, podcast stuff, like the Adventure Zone. And then you have Larian, who have consistently been making, you know, like Divinity, Original Sin 2, wildly successful game, critically lauded. And then this went into early access 3 years ago, and people were like, oh shit, this is good. And it's just been this consistent drip feed. Not even drip feed, just like swell of just like positivity. Like, it was already very positive on Steam. And then just everything they were doing, I think like marketing wise, talking directly to the community, that kind of stuff just really paid off. And then at this point, maybe gamers are just ready for more systems based gameplay stuff rather than, hey, I'm gonna hold your hand a bit.
Yeah. And I've even spoken to some people who are like, oh, I love D&D, and now I can kind of try and have my little character in the game. I've talked to some people who are like, oh, like I play D&D with my friends, or I play D&D with my dad, and now we're going to like jump into this new game together. I think the co-op aspect of this is like the most underrated or least talked about thing, because the fact that you can engage in this whole game with someone else is nuts.
That is crazy. From a game design perspective as well.
Yeah.
The fact that they built this in this way and that this works, like doing this on its own, single player would have already been such a head fuck.
Yeah.
And then for them to have been like, nah, we're going to make it co-op as well. It's just like, what? Calm down. Just relax. You know what I mean?
Are you playing co-op?
No.
Because I wouldn't.
I couldn't play this game co-op because I just take so long to do anything. The person I'm playing with are like, Ralph, would you just fucking sell the sword to the vendor? It's fine. You don't need it, you know? And I'm like, but maybe I will need it. I don't know. Let me think about it for another 5 minutes.
The other thing for me,
it's a really interesting. No, go on. You, Jake.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just reflecting on Gerard's question, like how much does this relate to the nostalgia of what Baldur's Gate was back in the day? I really don't think it is that big a deal because I just think it's such a legacy franchise at this point. I don't think anyone is really holding. I don't know. Like if this game sucked, I don't think it would be selling. That's obviously. Okay, that's silly. What I mean is that, like, I don't think the brand cash is so strong that this was just going to sell buttloads of copies because, it's got Baldur's Gate label on it, right?
Right.
I think it was because it's a really phenomenal game. That's why it's selling. And the fact that it happens to be a Baldur's Gate game is almost rather incidental when it comes to stuff like the history of the franchise. The fact that it's a Dungeons and Dragons game, I think does matter. And it's certainly mattered to me a lot personally as someone who doesn't play Dungeons and Dragons, like in-person role-playing. Because I've seen it. I've seen little bits of it. And I'm like, that's so cool. I wish I had enough personality to do that. That would be cool, you know?
You do,
but I'm
Ralph.
not. So
we should do a one-shot.
Exactly. I wish I had friends. That'd be amazing.
We should do the FPS one-shot.
Oh my god!
I got the perfect DM. His name is Brett Ultimus. He has a whole D&D IO like campaign he does on Twitch all the time. Tons of shows.
That's cool.
He'd be down to do like a FPS one-shot. It'd be fun.
Is it crazy from retail? I still hear DM and I think district manager, and I go, oh no.
But I think for me personally, because I don't do any Dungeons and Dragons. I am like listening to the narrator all of the experiences that I have on the road and the little things that pop up. I'm like, oh, so this must be what it feels like when people do Dungeons and Dragons, and there's the DM who's put all this work into writing this campaign and, you know, and talking you through the different events and the different circumstances, then it breaks this way or that. And I love feeling like I'm in the palm of a DM's hand while I play through this, because I don't get to get that anywhere else, and I've never really had it before, but I'm getting it here. And that is so cool and fun. And I just think every little, and this is what I think is so critical to it, it's like its charm, right? I think that when we play video games, like even like The Witcher, for example, which has really good, well-written side quests, they still feel like side quests in video games that are written for video games. Mm-hmm. What happens here in Baldur's Gate doesn't feel like that. They feel like these little crafted scenarios that someone has sat down and written out in a DM's voice and a DM's approach to, scenario design, and the way that you go through them and the way you're talked through them and the way you have to roll dice to, like, it feels like such a fundamentally different experience rather than just your average side quest, which is kind of like, oh, I need you to go and kill the thing for me. Go and kill 5 of the things, actually, and I'll give you a sword. This game will also ask you to go and kill something, and it'll give you a sword in return. But it feels so much more lovingly crafted in the telling, and the way that they ask you is also more interactive because it usually involves some dice rolls. It's just so much more interesting to be given a quest like that in this game than it is in almost any other RPG that I've played. And I really do think that comes down to that kind of like DM touch, like that feeling of being in the DM's control, you know? So I love it. I love that. I'm not sure if that point makes sense at all, but like it's really stuck out to me.
Like the way I think is really special is like the way things feed into each other. And it's not just, I'm thinking like, especially when you have companions and all your companions have their own shit going on. And I was like, you know, in Mass Effect, it's acquisition mission. You take them on all your missions, but they don't really do like much. They just interact with each other, blah, blah, blah. And then you have their loyalty mission and then, you know, suicide mission, everyone together, right? Whereas this one, it's like they have stuff that interconnects a lot more. You can shag a lot of them. All of them, they give their own opinions on everything. Like, there's just, I mean, I guess that's just because there's way more dialogue, but like, they each have such a unique way of, like, they're all useful, but also when it comes to being out in the world, they have their relationships with each other. And this was also in Mass Effect 2, don't get me wrong. But, you know, those missions were very much like 1, 2, 3. Whereas this is like, it's a sprawl and it can see that it's going to go across the entire game and you might be able to pick up on it at some points rather than like certain points in the main narrative. It just feels really fleshed out, really cool. When everyone's at camp together as well, that's kind of some of my favorite moments just because it's, there's a party you can have at one point and everyone, it's great.
And I feel like, just to interject briefly on your point, which is kind of like, I think I'm only so early on and I've already been given so much stuff by my companions. The amount of content that I've been given by my companions to this point feels like it would have been spread out over, 2 to 3 different acts in a different game, if you know what I mean. Like, it's so as I'm hearing all this exposition from these characters and their quests are being updated, I'm like, damn man, we've still got like another 60 or 70 hours of game to go. Are you going to have stuff to say to me at the end if you're saying this much to me now? And I'm pretty sure they will have stuff to say to me at the end because it just feels like that kind of game. But you can tell they're just not holding anything back. Like they're just giving you so much so quickly because they've really gone to town on the writing. And these characters are so vivid as well. Every single one of them, I wish all of them were in my party. I hate that I have to choose. It pisses me off that I have to leave any of them at camp because all of them are cool so far. And again, how many RPGs or any RPG I play, I'm like, yeah, you can stay back at camp. Yeah, I don't really like you either. You're fine. You are coming with me though, right? Here, I'm just like, everyone has to come with me. Only 4 people. What the fuck? This is a scam. How do we increase party size? I just love everyone I meet. I really do. They feel so well written. The voice acting is top tier.
So
God.
Facial animation too. Like some of them as well. They're just like, just like tiny little motions,
Even-
but it makes them feel so good.
During little conversations, little pop-up things where you think they would just do their regular little canned little loop, like I'm talking. Every single moment they're speaking, I am like enthralled with whatever they're saying. And it could be like mundane, small side stuff. But it's like the voice acting, the writing, the faces, the way the bodies move as they speak. Like for a lot of moments, it's really surprising. And it just works. Like I'm about it.
There's such a dramatic flair to their delivery as well that they haven't gone for a gritty kind of like they're really playing it up. They're really leaning into the critical role thing where it's like, this is not trying to be a more gritty, dark take on D&D where everyone's kind of like mumbling into the mic and it's like, you know, bat flick kind of. No, it's not. It's literally like, oh, hello. Yes, I am. And it's just every character has this flair, you know, every single one. Astarion, like every scene
Tim
is just
Curry.
Like, yes,
He's
absolutely.
so good.
He's amazing. And that's another thing that I love about it. It's just got that shameless, dramatic flair oozing from it at all times. And it's just so unashamed about that. I really love it. So
that's great.
What sucks about this game? I mean, what's bad about this game? Inventory management sucks.
The
I had a
journal
bit of
isn't that great.
slowdown, but then
the journal's
they updated the drivers, so Touchwood it seems to be a bit better, but I had a bit of slowdown.
The camera stuff gets a bit funky.
Oh, are you mouse and keyboard or are you controller?
Oh, mouse and keyboard.
Oh,
yeah,
no,
controller.
If you genuinely, the controller support is incredible.
I actually have tried the controller. I will admit, yes, I do. It's very impressive. The way that they've managed to squeeze it all into the controller is like crazy. Wow. But at the same time, I love being able to just pan across a map and move and all that sort of shit. But the camera stuff can be quite funky sometimes, depending on what you're doing and whatever else. But it's such a minor gripe. It's like, whatever, man, you know? Yeah.
I genuinely can't think of anything I dislike about it.
It do be that way, don't it? It's just
I haven't felt as enraptured with a game that in such a long time. Like there have been games this year, and that's, you know, another part of the episode that we'll be talking about is like games of the year so far, where it's like I absolutely adore Dead Space, Resident Evil 4 remake.
Sure.
But God, this has consumed me in a way.
Yeah.
Because like I think it is still as good as it is, I still think it is a very specific type of game for specific types of players. Yeah. I think this one can onboard people better than their previous games though, because I've been someone who has been like acutely aware of the Divinity Original Sin games, checked out the first one a little bit, checked out the second one a little bit, but they were games where like I felt like I just had to be in a specific mood for, and I never really just kind of like sat down and let it get its hooks in me. And for some reason with this one, it just came way quicker, way easier. And I can't like explain why. Maybe it's what I said about like how enthralling the characters are immediately. But yeah.
We were talking about this at work, and like because early access was 3 years ago. I'd forgotten how long it originally was in the intro. Like when you're first on the Mind Flayer ship, it's so much longer. And now it feels like it streamlines you and it just wants you to get out there and start exploring. But even in terms of how big the world is, and it's a sizable map with so much in it, doesn't feel overwhelming at all. Like I think it does a really good job of placing waypoints for you. And like it obviously rewards exploration, but it doesn't try and encourage you to just, ignore hang on. I'm phrased that badly. It does a really good job of placing waypoints and encouraging you to go forward, but it also rewards you for going off the beaten path a little bit, but it's not so big that you'll get lost and completely ignore the golden path forever. Because there aren't towers to climb and fog of war to live. Well, no, I guess it kind of is.
There is fog of war, but there's no
there is fog of war.
towers.
I was trying to make a Ubisoft kind of thing, but it failed.
It just helped me understand Dungeons and Dragons. Like I was like, oh, okay. Like I'm starting to get this. And I found myself like Googling things. I'm like, what's this person about? What's that thing they keep saying? And I Google it and I go, whoa, holy shit. What? This is crazy. And then I just like fall down more rabbit holes. And then I go back to the game almost like reinvigorated or like backed up a little bit because now I Googled some stuff and found out all this Dungeons and Dragons craziness. And that's been good. I think that's obviously like what maybe they wanted to do, but it's working for me. So now I can actually go and speak to some of the Dungeons and Dragons people I know who've been asking me to play forever. And now I could be like,
sure.
I know about those people in the stars. What's up?
Yep. I think as well, because I played the originals back in the day, 1 and 2, and they were definitely some of the most like formative games for me. Baldur's Gate 2 in particular. I definitely would not be the nerd I am today without Baldur's Gate 2 for sure. But back then I was very happy to sit and read a video game for hundreds of hours. And what I mean by that is you had to just sit there and read those games because the story was told entirely through text and you would sit there and read it. And later on, or more recently I should say, I've tried to play stuff like Pillars of Eternity and I can't do it. And it bums me out because I'm like, I really want to love this thing, but my brain just doesn't have the attention span that it used to be able to sit there and read through text for 120 hours or 150 hours or however long PoE is, right? Not PoE, sorry. Yeah, Pillars of Shame. So I feel like the fact that all of this is voiced and it has the cinematic presentation of like a BioWare game, you know, like Mass Effect or Dragon Age or whatever, that is so crucial to bringing this to the mainstream because I think the fundamentals of this are quite similar to what they used to be in the past. I think that a lot of the systems are more flexible than they used to be in terms of what you can do with the landscape and with your items and how you can interact with things. Like that's more sophisticated and flexible than it was back in the day. But the fact that you can hear these characters talk and the fact that you can see their faces in this way, this is what I think brings the CRPG into the modern era in a way that no other CRPG has been able to do to this point. And that's what's gotten me over the line with it. Because if this was just 120 hours of text, I don't think I would be playing this game. I wish that I could. I wish my brain worked that way to this day, but it just doesn't. And I love that modernization has occurred.
So I have a question for you then. Did you play Disco Elysium before Final Cut came out? Because it wasn't
I did, but Disco Elysium's so short. Like Disco Elysium is
20 hours?
Like 20 hours. Do you know what I mean? Again, and that's fine. I'm okay to do a 20-hour thing, right? And also the way Disco Elysium is written is very special. There's such a it's so vividly written. And that's no indictment on PoE, on Pillars of Eternity, because I didn't play enough of it to be really able to say how well written it is or not. I just know that I tried to play it and my brain was like, no, don't do this. Stop. Go back on Twitter or something. Is terrible.
Liverpudlian child yelling, Kuno doesn't fucking care at you.
What?
Kuno in Disco Elysium.
That
he had
kid,
like one
he was the one behind the fence. Yeah, sure.
No,
sure,
that was the girl. Kuno was the one that you can punch.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, sure.
And he just yells, Kuno doesn't fucking care.
Yeah.
With that great accent.
So yeah, I just think this game caters to my more modern attention span, and it's working for me big time.
Do you call it a modern attention span or a broken attention span by the world?
Both.
I call it a modern...
I think a modern attention span is a broken attention span.
No, fundamentally, I don't believe humanity has evolved to the point where we should have access to all of the information that we are getting all the time.
I agree.
Like our brains cannot function, and that is why everyone's memory is shit. No one has any attention span anymore.
Well,
we basically
we're all on TikTok all the time.
Well,
I'm not.
Twitter or Threads or whatever. You're not nice.
No.
Everything else.
Well, let's talk a little bit about other games that came out this year, because we talked a lot about Baldur's Gate, and recently, as of I think today, we're recording this on Wednesday, it has dethroned Tears of the Kingdom as being the highest rated game on Metacritic.com for 2023. So we also
surprised about that, by the way. I'm stunned.
I'm weirdly not.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Not that I think it doesn't deserve the score, by the way, because I actually do. But what I'm saying is I'm surprised that it got to the point where everyone is like giving it those sorts of scores. I'm really surprised. You know, I just thought Tears of the Kingdom had a lock-on game of the year, like it was over.
Maybe it's because I didn't like love Tears of the Kingdom as much as everyone else.
How far into the game did you get?
I played like 25 hours.
That's like you played it for sure.
But you know, for me, it was just kind of like I've talked about this. It's like more of the same, like unguided stuff for me, where it does. My TikTok ass brain does not. Sometimes I can be in the mood to make my own adventure, but I think with Zelda, the story. Don't hate me, people on the internet. The story was not strong enough for me to pull me through it because I don't really have a past history with Zelda, so I don't really have, Anyway.
Sure. No, that's totally fair. And I hear I think a lot of people agree with you. And a lot of people also say stuff like, look, I liked it, but it was just too similar to Breath of the Wild. Or they say they didn't like it because it was too similar to Breath of the Wild. And in terms of just a straight up innovative title, I mean, I think very few titles are delivering as much sheer innovation this year as Baldur's Gate is, unless I'm forgetting something.
Didn't you see that isn't Nintendo like copywriting their game mechanics from... It's like how, Warner Brothers copyrighted or whatever they did for trademarked the Nemesis system, and then no one's used it since, not even Warner Brothers. So anyways.
They're copywriting the mechanics of Tears of the Kingdom?
Yes.
Is that confirmed?
Let me get that
confirmed,
up.
yes.
Yeah.
Files
patents for Link's abilities. Yeah, that was it. And the loading screen.
Really?
Yeah.
Loading screen? What?
That ugly loading screen.
Apparently, like, I've seen some commentary on this, and this is pretty common, and it's not like other people can't use the same mechanics. It's just that they can't be one-to-one copies of them. I don't exactly know how it all works. I think the whole world of copywriting mechanics in video games is fucking garbage, and all of it should be deleted. There should be no such thing as that. But it is what it is. It's like copywriting a camera technique in a movie or something. Do you know what I mean? It's just stupid. But anyway, lawyer's gonna lawyer.
Exactly. Gotta do something. Talking about games from this year then. So there is a lot of games, and it's a packed as hell year. I think Paris Lily tweeted this. He was like, I think this may be one of the best years for video games in a very long time, if not one of the best ever.
Yes, for sure.
And I mean, I'm interested to know, we are in August. We're about to hit this big release season. What are your guys' games of the year so far? Gerard, we've been talking about Baldur's Gate, and you've been so sweet and patient. So I'm going to come to you first. What have you been enjoying this year?
Oh man, it's such a hard question to answer, because even looking at this list, there are games that have come out that I love that aren't here. And I'm a weird guy. I try to stay away from we all know that these games are going to be the games that everyone talks about for the next 18 months plus, right? But for me, I'm like, what's some of the stuff that people aren't, that's going to go under the radar that I'm obsessed with? But I mean, if we're talking about what we've gotten so far, the game that I put probably the most amount of personal time in, that I continually enjoy and keep circling back to, is Street Fighter 6. It's got such it just feels like fighting games this year have become important to so many people who aren't really into fighting games. And we just had Evo last week, which was phenomenal. I wish I had gotten to go, but if I had gone to Evo, then I'm on the road for the next 7 weeks. So I had to decide to take a personal weekend to myself, and that's what I did. But the amount of playtime and just playing with friends and just being in the lab, learning and growing and getting my ass whooped, but learning, and even Rashid just came out, and they just announced the TMNT costume pack. It just feels like that's the game that I'm gonna keep recircling in the next couple of months. I just finished Resident Evil 4 Remake completely in terms of completion. Took me 130 hours, so now I gotta make my video on it. I mean, obviously, I love Final Fantasy 16 a lot. Dead Space, I think, was the one I probably remember the clearest in terms of the game that I keep thinking about more often than not, just because I just love Dead Space so much. And I just started Diablo 4 a couple of days ago, which is ironic because now everyone is off the Diablo train and is now on the Baldur's Gate train. So that's interesting to look at all of this. But the sad thing is that the list that we have here that we're talking about, the games that I've listed, there are so many more games coming out in the next couple of weeks to months. You got WrestleQuest, you got Sea of Stars, you got flipping Starfield, Super Mario Wonder, Super Mario RPG remake, Spider-Man 2. Like, there's too many games. Stop it. There's too many games. I'm not even talking, like, there's just too many. There's just too many. I'm overwhelmed, but I'm having a good time. Jake, what are your thoughts on some of the games so far? What's your standout that you're obsessed with?
It's weird. I can say that it's been a really good year for game releases, but I don't know if it's burnout or something, but like I've played and seen and experienced a lot of like good games this year, but now that I'm sitting here thinking, there's not one that like instantly to me is like, oh yeah, that's the best shit ever. I don't really have that yet. I know we're like a little bit more than halfway through the year, and I'm not saying that any of the games out that released in the last couple of months are bad or anything, but none of them really quite to me has like that holy shit. Maybe Baldur's Gate 3, maybe, but I mean some of the best games that like I enjoyed this year are like remakes or remasters, which is weird. Like Resident Evil 4 remake, absolutely loved it because it's well done, because it was fun seeing that journey again, but in a different lens. Then, I mean, Metroid Prime Remastered, I also just really, really, really liked. But that's just because I was in the mood to replay it, and now it's nicer looking. Game. Yeah, and it's just really good, so it's easy. So I've been struggling with like my wrap up brain. The couple things, and I had added these to the list. The couple of things that really stick out to me are like, like I blasted through Jedi Survivor, really like that. So many other things, but then it was the littler things like Dredge. You guys recommending Dredge to me and me playing that, and like every night wrapped up in bed, absorbed in that little boat. And that's so different from my day-to-day normal gaming thing where I'm like, all right, another one. Let's go to work. This is fun. This is cool. I can tell this is good. Dredge was different. And then Hi-Fi Rush is another one where it just came out of nowhere and was a total surprise. And to me, like, I love cartoons, I love animation, I love all the influences that game had on its sleeve, and it was just so cool to just get hit in the face with that. So it's like I'm going more on like like vibes for like my games of the year so far, and that's kind of where I'm at. If that makes sense.
I love vibes based. Yeah, no, vibes based gaming is like completely right for me. I think I'm in the same boat as you where I've been feeling a bit burnt out this year. There's been a lot going on in general, but like playing Dredge, playing Dave the Diver.
Oh man, what a game.
Two completely opposite on the vibes spectrum. Lovecraftian horror.
That's right. Both water adventures, but
chill restaurant and diving sim. Yep. But I think both of them, the thing that really got me about those and why I'm still talking about them, I'm still playing Dave the Diver, it's like the loop on both is just impeccable. I can keep going, incrementally getting better, discovering more, interacting with more characters, doing more, getting better. And it's just been also music, sound design in both has been so good. And I guess because not that I need to justify my Steam Deck purchase, but it's genuinely like I have a PC hooked up to my TV now. I could play Dave the Diver there. But I get to feel really special if I'm on a plane and I'm like, oh, I've got a 4-hour flight. I'm just going to play Dave the Diver. It's going to be great. You know?
That's what I did when I was on my holidays. Exactly what I did.
Yeah. And it's just like, it feels, it kind of wraps it in a different sort of package for me where it feels like, oh, this is the treat to myself when I go travel because I don't really play it at other points because I'm too busy playing the big thing that we all have to do for work.
Of course.
But in terms of this year, I mean, Dead Space and Resident Evil 4 for me, just in terms of how well those have translated, how well they've been remade, the changes and like the tweaks. But I think for me, honestly, my game of the year is Baldur's Gate. I'm only 30 hours in, but it's gonna have to really shit the bed to not be. I mean, I've had so many fun experiences. Don't take this without the context that I'm providing, but it reminds me of playing Red Dead 2 when that game first came out, because of the way that, like, on Slack at work, we just have a Baldur's Gate thing, and it's people just dropping stuff and be like, did you know you can do this? I've ran into these guys. And I love those kind of flash in the pan moments that, you know, Tears of the Kingdom has as well, for sure. But Baldur's Gate certainly has, where people just kind of rally and everyone's kind of on the same adventure together, but separately. And I love that.
It is cool. It is really nice in a sort of meta way to experience that journey together with the zeitgeist, if that makes sense, you know. It's the same thing with Elden Ring. Like, played that before. We played that in the release window, obviously, in the preview, review window. But then just because you knew what people were going through when you were watching the discourse unfold, and you could be like, everyone's going to get up to this boss very soon. Yeah. Can't wait for that. And sure enough, the discourse hits, and you're like, there it is. I think similarly with the fact that we're all going through Baldur's Gate together right now, and we all have all these stories to share about, like the greasy shove, for example, as our major strategy for getting through. And, you know, the fact that I basically rolled a paladin who's kind of recreation of the paladin I used to have, you know, like 20 years ago when I played the original game. And I tried to create a character that was as close to the original character portrait as I could manage. And just all those things are just super cool. And it's nice when we, as like a gaming community, it's a weird word, not really the right word, but like as gamers or whatever, can go through and experience like stuff like this all at once. It's fun. You know, I like that a lot.
I agree.
I also agree.
I needed that. Like as I get grinchy, but I especially like with discourse and online gaming and how things can be picked apart and how we kind of lose sight of like what the fun is. Then there are moments like this where we are all huddled around a digital campfire figuring shit out. And it's been a good year for that. It's really been a good like 2 years for that, because Elden Ring was last year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm reliving the Elden Ring stuff now because the Retry Boys, RKG, are playing it because they got big doing like Dark Souls playthroughs when they were IGN, and then they split off and they do their own channel now, and they're finally doing their Elden Ring playthrough.
Sure.
And watching that is making me just like, I have too much on. I can't do it. It's like, you know, I can't pick up Elden Ring again. Right now. I want to. I want to just like follow along on the journey. Just seeing Rory like figure things out and be like, I'm still chasing that high of like remembering like when things locked into place in Elden Ring. But,
it's like when Red Letter Media put out old video, like reviews of old movies. I'm like, I got to go back and watch that again now, don't I? Yeah, I do. Yeah. Just like, you just like watching the boys make fun of something or experience something again. You're like, yeah, we'll do that again. It's a good excuse, you know? Yeah. So yeah, for me personally, I've had an interesting year in terms of all this stuff and like, you know, what I'm liking and not like, because there has been a lot of remakes and remasters, and I think they've allowed me to connect with games that I hadn't in the past. Like, for example, Like a Dragon Ishin is a good example. Never came to the West. And so the fact that it did was cool, and everyone got to experience it for the first time in the West. But for me personally, that was like the first RGG game that I really clicked with, because I played Lost Judgment and did not like that. And then I was like, all right, well, maybe I don't like RGG games. But then I was like, no, I do. I must. It has all the things that I like. And then so I was like, no, I'm going to try again. And I just absolutely loved Like a Dragon Ishin. I thought it was just fucking cool. And the characters were amazing. And the storyline and just all of it. And being able to explore that, like, you know, the old city and everything was just fantastic. So I really loved that. I feeling like I have that connection to RGG games now that I didn't have before because of Ishin, and I'm really keen to like dive into more of the series in the future. I really liked Jedi Survivor a lot, in fact, except for all of its technical bullshit. I think it was just a really cool, like, same with the first game, just they really understand Star Wars super well, Respawn, and they know how to spin up a great Star Wars yarn. And I was just all in on that, you know, and I'm really glad they're making a third game, reportedly. Is that like confirmed? They said that publicly they're working on a third one?
I think they've publicly said they wanted it to be a trilogy.
Yeah.
That's right. They did say that. You're right. Yeah. So, but like everyone knows they'll make a third. They're hiring for it and whatever. Like it's not like a secret or whatever. But yeah, I really like that. And yeah, Resident Evil 4. So I played Resident Evil 4 back in the day, and it just never really clicked with me back then either. I'm not exactly sure why, but here I was just like, damn, man, this is incredible. Like Resident Evil 4 remake. Because I've always considered myself a Resident Evil 2 guy. I'm like, nah, Resident Evil 2 is the best, man. Can't top it. But now I think Resident Evil 4 is the best Resident Evil I played, like 4 remake. And it's also sold me on the third person perspective, because I actually thought the shift to first person was an upgrade. And I still think it's good now, but 4 was so good in terms of how Leon controlled and all of it. And I was just like, nah, man, you can't go back from this. It's just too good now. That game really, really, really blew me away. And I don't know. I guess I felt for it what people felt for the original all those years ago, which, you know, for whatever reason, I just never experienced that. And then, yeah, obviously Tears of the Kingdom, which we've already talked about, which is pretty special. And I was playing Dave the Diver, and I love it. It's great. Hi-Fi Rush was fantastic. Yeah, it's been a really great year. And, you know, Baldur's Gate is definitely proving to be, with every passing hour, more and more exceptional.
Tasty.
Yeah, and if it can maintain this and continue to deliver new surprises and new characters and new stories, and it can just continue to just surprise me and with its flexibility and what it's capable of, then yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'd always said this. I'd long said there's no way anything's topping Tears of the Kingdom this year. Maybe this does for me personally. You know, maybe it does. And there's also Starfield, but I don't know. We'll see how Starfield goes. It's too early to judge because no one knows what Starfield is. Only one person has played it, the guy at IGN, and only one person is allowed to talk about it, Todd. So we have no idea otherwise. We're just like, yeah, I guess it's coming. So I'm hopeful that that's really great, but we just don't know at this point because we haven't seen it in the flesh.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot to come.
Great, though. I was gonna say it feels like now we can just like dig into Baldur's Gate for a little bit, and then end of the month is
actually Armored Core. Don't forget Armored Core.
Oh, end of the month Wrestle Quest, Armored Core, into Starfield,
Atlas
into Cyberpunk.
Yes.
Atlas Fallen, into Alan Wake, into Assassin's Creed, into COD, and then we're pretty much, nonstop until.
Don't forget Avatar.
Right at the end.
Don't forget Avatar, Lucy. How dare you forget Avatar?
How could I forget the revolution on Hallelujah Mountain?
While we're at it, why don't we just talk about Skull and Bones for another 10 minutes? What do you guys think? Skull and Bones? Should we just kind of.
Is that coming out? Like,
no, it's not.
You made a great point in your video, Ralph, about how they canceled the Immortals Phoenix Rising sequel, an actual good game, but they've been pumping money into Skull and Bones for like 50 years now.
I'm so pissed off about that. I'm actually mad. I'm so mad about it. But whatever, man. Ubisoft, gonna Ubisoft. What do you say? What do you do?
What do you do?
That's it.
Well, that was a look back at some of the best games of 2023 so far. Obviously, a lot more still to come. You guys interviewed the team from Wayfinders.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we interviewed Joe and Steve Madureira. And Joe is the creative director in the game and a comic book artist from like back in the day when I used to collect comics. And his brother Steve is the game director on a game called Wayfinder, which is coming out very soon. It's actually being published by Digital Extreme, people who do Warframe. And it's like a free-to-play action MMO kind of thing. I played the beta very briefly and I liked it. And there's plenty of preview coverage up for it, which is very positive. And they're just a cool studio as well, because they also did Battle Chasers, they did Darksiders Genesis, and they did Ruined King, that the League of Legends one, League of Legends spin-off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So a really talented studio who are just like pushing into some new space, had some really interesting stuff to say about like the MMO genre, their plans, live service. So yeah, let's kick over to them now and see how it went. All right. Hello and welcome to the interview block. Very excited about this one, actually. We're joined today by Joe and Steve Madureira.
Nice. Yeah.
Did I do it? I got it. That's all right. 2 in a row. I was really scared that I was because I actually pronounced that name very differently in my head, and it's always been incorrect over the years. And it's a name that it's funnily enough a name that I've had in my head for a while because I used to collect comics back in the day, and I collected your X-Men run back in the day, Joe. And I actually have like a foil Uncanny 350, you know, the one with the Gambit on the cover?
Yeah.
And it's like one of my favorite things ever. I like loved your run. I just think your art has been amazing ever since Day Dot. Because, and so yeah, I just wanted to say, first of all, it's cool to meet you for that reason.
Hopefully I can see your book someday.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love that. That would be amazing. But we will talk about Wayfinder. That's definitely why we've got you on today. Before that though, I kind of want to talk a little bit about Airship Syndicate because obviously you worked at Vigil and you co-created Darksiders and Steve, you were, because you guys are brothers and you were working at Vigil as well on Darksiders 1, correct?
Yeah. So I was like the 6th person at Vigil. It was while they were still pitching Darksiders. So we were working on an old game called Dungeon Runners back then, which a lot of people might not know about.
Yeah.
Short-lived.
We don't talk about it. It's okay.
Right. Okay.
But So
yeah, Steve was like, he wanted to be an animator, and I was like, no nepotism. I don't want to be in the interview. I don't know him if he's good or not. You guys talk to him, and he did like an animation test, and it's funny because the first thing he had to work on was Ruin, which is War's mount. You know, the horse, which are notoriously difficult to animate. And I was like, oh my God, Steve's thing is.
So Marvin, who was one of the co-founders at Vigil, he like helped. He was nice and he helped me mentor me like for my demo reel and stuff because I went to Full Sail, so I was doing animation, and it was like really cool. And like I was like, hey, like it would be cool if I can go intern like over there and just you don't need to pay me. I just want to work there. And they're like, yeah, I guess you can come over here. And I remember my.
We still don't pay him.
Yeah.
Nice. That's good. Nice.
But yeah, so I just basically drove there after I finished Full Sail, brought my own PC, built my desk and chair and stuff, and just started animating. And they were too busy to start on the horse. I was like, I'll just start making a horse. And I modeled it and did some janky ass rig that I think made it into Darksiders 2 even because
right.
The horse.
Yes. And just to talk Steve up, because I don't know if he'll do it himself, but he has an animation background. And when he joined us, he was like our lead animator and ran the animation team at like on Battle Chasers, even though it was our first game and it was a Kickstarter as Airship. It, you know, like the animation is pretty incredible. It was like you and one other person, right?
Yeah, when we started, we all wore many hats, and Brian's background is a lot on the level design side. And when I was animating at Vigil, I worked really close with the combat team. So, and that's like where my interest was anyway. So I basically took on like progression and combat design and animation. So those were like my hats, and just teaching myself some scripting and stuff. And like, so we had, you know,
the RP genius reemerged inside him, and he had to go into systems and combat and stuff, and just leave animation.
Yeah, as we were hiring, like at Airship, we ended up getting an animator, and so that was, you know, a lot of that was taken care of. So I started shifting more and more to the design side, and then that just kept happening. And then there was a point when we had like 2 projects at once, and I was doing animation directing and design directing on 2 projects, and it was like, okay, this is maybe a little too much. So then we got the lead animator. He basically over time took over all the animation, so now I don't animate anymore, and I shifted more and more to the design, the design side of it.
Sure.
Design director.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah, nice.
Unpaid.
So you guys did Battle Chasers, obviously. You did Darksiders Genesis. Returning to that franchise. Yeah. What was that like what was it like to return to that franchise, and how do you feel that all went? Because that was a kind of spin-off offshoot title sort of within the broader Darksiders canon. Yeah. How did that all go?
It was awesome. Yeah. Like first of all, THQ was always really cool to work with. Like they gave us so much creative freedom, and, having stepped away for a while, like coming back, we, honestly, a lot of the stuff we did led to Wayfinder, and I don't think that we could have done this game at the time that we were pitching it without having worked on like, you know, Battle Chasers and Ruin King was all about like the RPG like systems and loot and stats and stuff like that. And then Darksiders Genesis, we wanted to do, you know, online co-op, and it was action, which, you know, we hadn't done in a while, and it like helped us cut our teeth. And it was in Unreal as well, because we were working in Unity before. So like all of these little pieces kind of like came together to like help us you know, get stronger in those areas. And then as the team was growing, when publishers were like, could you do something bigger, like third person, we were like, yeah, I think we can. but before then, I don't know that we could have confidently done it. So but yeah, it was awesome. Like we basically pitched THQ on like a war and strife like side quest, and like focused heavily on strife because he hadn't really been seen in the series before, other than in a couple of like cutscenes or whatever. And we pushed the idea of adding some, you know, comedy to the series, like more like a buddy comedy, because, you know, the story gets pretty dark in Darksiders, but like it just felt like, you know, in like the way the characters play off each other, it's like serious. It's like, you know, if Death is like brings the levity to the team, we're in trouble, because he probably was the funniest, right? Fury is super stoic, so is War. So like it just felt good for Strife to be funny, but it was kind of potentially controversial, and luckily they were into it, and I think it gave the game like an identity. Plus it's co-op, and it's just fun to like you know, play off of each other like that and have fun little quips and stuff. Cool. And then the game, like, you know, we cut our teeth on the combat and like
bringing back to the action combat,
cool boss fights, and
doing multiplayer also, like because that was our first multiplayer game too. Even at, you know, I guess on Vigil we were working on the 40K MMO on, like, not me personally, I was always on Darksiders, and even Darksiders 2, when they had originally pitched Darksiders, the idea was, hey, you can play all 4 horsemen, but it was like, that's too crazy for the first game. And then the second game didn't do that either. So it was like, hey, we finally get a chance to do a multiplayer Darksiders like we always wanted, you know, with this new team.
No one remembers the 40K MMO that we were doing at the original THQ, Dark Millennium Online. It got scrapped right, you know, when THQ went bankrupt, the original THQ. But that also is an important piece of the puzzle, because we were working on an MMO, and one of our founders, Chris Brooks, was actually like on the tech team that worked on that MMO on like back end stuff. So like that ended up, it's weird. There's like all this stuff that like came together, and it's like, oh, we've done this before and we've done that before.
Yeah,
we did that on 40K. So otherwise, I don't, you know, it would be tough for a tiny studio in Austin to like work on what is slowly becoming, I mean, it's been called like an MMO light or whatever. We definitely didn't set out to make an MMO, but I think we all would, that's the dream. Like we would love the world. Year 3. We just want to keep growing this world and just make it a cool place where, you know, you can just like hang out. We have social stuff planned, like player housing, like just a cool, you know, hobby, not just running around killing monsters and stuff.
Interesting. Yeah.
So
well,
what
that's
did
actually
kick off? What did kick off Wayfinder? Because everything you described so far, it seems like all the ships were pointing to it. But what was the spark? Like, what made you guys sit and go, okay, let's make this next?
You're never going to believe this. This is very random, but I won't say we pitched a Metroidvania to the biggest. I don't want to name names, but whatever. We worked on a pitch for Castlevania. Okay.
Okay.
Shit. Okay.
All right.
Because we have bucket list items. We're like, we want to make a Zelda game, but dark, and that's where Darksiders came from. We want to make a turn-based JRPG vibe game. And we're just big nerds for Metroidvania games. And it seemed like something, it was like, what kind of games can we make with our super small studio without, that we can execute really well with the talent that we have. And so JRPG seemed doable. And the other one was like a Metroidvania. We got this. And we're like, what if it's co-op, multiplayer? We do this like Metroidvania. Castlevania fell through. No surprise there. But we just had the bug to like do a Metroidvania. And so we were like, what if it's like online multiplayer and there's like, it's kind of an RPG and like there's quests and stuff. And we started working on this thing. It was Project Skylight, which is the city in Wayfinder. And like, we got pretty far along with it with publishers. And weirdly, when you're pitching stuff, you want to keep the price as low as possible. I'm going way into detail here, but I just want you guys to know.
This is great. Please, all the detail, give it to us.
Sometimes even all the mistakes and all the failed, pitches and stuff lead to something. And so a couple publishers were like, yeah, I love the concepts of the game. It's so cool, but it's like so small. Like, we don't know what to do with this. Like, what would you do if you had like 10 times that budget? And we're like, what? Like, that's so crazy. Like, we don't even have a team that's big enough to do something like that. And then we made the big pitch, which was a fully fleshed out third person, like in an, open world with random generated dungeons and stuff. And like, very close to what it is now. And that got more traction, oddly, but we were like pretty nervous about it until Digital Extremes was, like we hit it off with them like right off the bat, and they had done Warframe and it was extremely successful. And we thought like, hey, if we're going to step into this realm, like we better have a partner that kind of knows what they're doing. Cause there's a lot of learning that you do through, just failure and mistakes. And they have already done that for like 10 years and like made an awesome game that's widely regarded as being very fair to players and like, monetized properly and stuff, which, we thought like, this is like weird. Like it's too perfect. It's too good to be true. And so that partnership kicked off, and the game, early on, it started as a little more blank slate, like RPG, where it's like, pick your gender, pick your class. I'm a rogue, I'm a warrior. And we, like, as we started fleshing it out, we were like, we're not leaning into our strengths. Like, as a studio, I feel like, we should have characters with like their own backstories and like just lean more into like what we do well. We have an amazing art team. And so we made the switch to character based, which DE was very supportive of. And it also, I don't know, we kept making changes that would make it less like Warframe and more like its own identity. And everything is just together, and so far so good. I guess we'll see in like
well, actually, I think a lot of people who are watching this probably aren't super familiar with what Wayfinder is. So I'm gonna maybe, Steve, if you could just give us like the elevator pitch and the very brief kind of primer on what it actually is.
Yeah, so it's an online multiplayer RPG MMO light, not an MMO yet. It's in early access, so
right.
There's a lot of stuff we want to do, and we're planning on the game growing. We have a lot of plans. Feedback coming in. We're always receptive to receiving that, so we can improve the game and really lean in on stuff that people enjoy. It's character based, so like Joe was saying, similar to other champion based games or character based game like Warframe. So characters, you'll get them. You'll have to level them up. So even if you're acquiring a new character, you can craft them in game, or if you buy them, you'll get them level 1, level them up, similar to Warframe. Anything with power comes. You'll have to earn in game, or you can earn in game. So we want to make sure that anything that you buying the store isn't just like, oh, you can't have access to this power unless you pay money. So everything is completely earnable. There are some things you can only acquire in games, such as like housing artifacts. So housing being one of the social systems, it also brings other power because you can place artifacts in your house. To acquire those, you need to get them in game. You can't buy any artifacts. So there's, definitely trying to stay, free and fair, like, Warframe, and learning from their lessons. I think the ramble, that was...
No, that's, cool.
Answered three more of your future.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's perfect. No, that's great. So, I mean, just the way you describe it, like it's character driven. You obtain these new characters. You craft these new characters, I think is what you said. I understand that you are journeying through an open world, but a lot of the gameplay is going to be within these procedurally created dungeons. You are going to collect weapons, and different characters can equip different weapons to sort of mix up their styles and whatever else. It sounds quite like Warframe in many aspects. And so you were saying that you were making changes to make it less like Warframe. Was it a lot more like Warframe at the beginning and it stepped away from that? Like, how would you differentiate these two things right now?
Yeah, I think the systems like that are still, that there are some still in place, but like the narrative wrapper is less crafting, if you will, and more, basically you play in this world that at the start of the game is destroyed by this threat called the Gloom, by these invaders that basically wipe out humanity. And luckily, this last attack was predicted by the Seekers, this group of heroes, and they managed to light the beacon in Skylight. And so it's the last protected city that kind of the Gloom gets driven back, but it unfortunately wipes out the rest of the world as far as you know. The only survivors are within Skylight. And so using this weird destructive magic that sort of like alters reality, Omen, one of the Seekers, is able to use it to actually bring back one of the fallen Wayfinders. And in doing this, like, as you just, it's kind of a survival story and like in this fantasy world. And as you're doing this, like you discover more about the Gloom and the mysteries behind it. She's able to piece things together and bring back other legendary heroes that have fallen. It's kind of like our version of a multiverse type thing, where it's like not concurrent realities, but possible outcomes. So, that's why you'll see a bunch of Wingraves running around. It's like, my Wingrave's not the same as yours. You have a basis in a character that lived before, but once you pull them out of the Gloom, like, they can kind of live their own lives or whatever. Sure. They're like almost like variants. So there's a lot of like fantasy, sci-fi, magitech. Like we were really trying to create something new and fresh that doesn't just feel like traditional fantasy, but like the underlying systems might feel like, oh, I got a weapon and now I got to level it up. That's just like Warframe. But the presentation, like, I mean, hopefully it feels like very different enough that if you are, a player of Warframe, you'll enjoy it, but you won't feel like, oh, I'm already like playing this elsewhere.
Will feel very different too. I think one other thing too is the pace is definitely slower. You're not like ninja sliding and like speeding through everything.
Sure.
It's a little more deliberate, a lot more melee focus. There is, ranged weapon class, but there are 3 weapon classes that are melee. So, and again, a lot of that is leading into the combat will feel similar to, Darksiders-ish, like that. We have that same, that's just kind of in our DNA. So if you like Darksiders, you'll probably like this.
What are people going to be doing together other than dungeon running when they're out in the hubs together? What do you think players are going to be doing?
So to talk a little more about like stuff they can do, there's the hub, which is like the social area. No fighting there, but you'll be talking to NPCs, getting quests. That you'll see a ton of other players there, going on missions. There's out in the overland areas. Those are like shared spaces. So that's like you'll see other people, doing questing, finding secrets. killing enemies out in the wild, and
world bosses.
Yeah, world bosses.
Cool.
Like a lot of live events, will take place there. So for like that season, there might be some special things happening in the overlands. You'll find dungeon entrance, lost zones, we call them. But those are basically like dungeon entrances. And once you find those and like you're on the quest step, you'll eventually unlock new dungeons. And you'll be able to go into those with pre-made parties up to pre-made or match-made parties up to 3 people. And those are instanced dungeons essentially. And you can do expeditions, which are more like there'll be events that spawn there. You'll explore it, find chests and loot. And then there are hunts, which are basically boss fights. You just load in, do the boss fight, and then you're out. So different play session times.
Social stuff.
And so then on the social side, there's the housing too. So step 1, in early access, we have apartments. So you'll have just an interior space. You can have friends come over, can decorate it, hang out there, and you'll be able to get decorations to put in your house. And then I talked about like artifacts and trophies, which have gameplay purposes also. In the future, the next step is going to be neighborhoods, which will be basically you'll be able to have a house next to your friend in a neighborhood. And like, your other friends down the street, and you'll see your neighbors and you'll have exterior spaces like, oh man, did you see down the street, they have a cool statue on their yard. And like, and just, changing out the music in your house. We want to add things like friend artifacts. So there'll be something you can do so that a friend can place an artifact in your house and you can activate that power. So like working together with friends to share that. And then down the road from that would be guilds and guild neighborhoods. So you'd basically be able to have a neighborhood for your guild. So like only guild members would have houses in the neighborhood. And, we have lots of, cosmetics to change your appearance, like visually, like change a model, like of parts of your style, or colors, emotes and stuff. There's lots of ways to express yourself.
And pets.
Yeah, pets.
Very important.
Doing world bosses together. So there's definitely a lot of different things. Mutators are a whole other thing too. So when you're going into a lost zone, you'll be able to use something called imbuements to basically modify the run. So you'll basically start with no slots. You'll unlock slots over time, and you'll be able to put in a mutator, for example, like a toxic mutator or flora mutator, which if you have one, it's like now it's a toxic run. There are these poison mushrooms all over the level while you're going through an expedition. But you'll be able to get special items like accessory sets or like resources that only drop with that mutator. And you'll need that to craft specific things or to craft something so you can do a hunt. And then you'll unlock a second slot, and now the combination will come up with a new mutator. So you can do like, a greed and a toxic. And now you have a completely different mutator. Or 2 toxics, flora. Toxic was the old name for that imbuement.
Right.
I'm like in dev name land.
Sure.
We notoriously rename everything right at the end too. So
Right.
A million.
But yeah,
Nice.
so different combinations. You'll be able to do lots of different things. We're going to be adding new imbuements, new mutator combinations, some seasonal ones that we have planned that are exciting, which that will be live for that season. So some special combinations that you can do to modify run specifically for that season. You have some fun ones planned. Seasonal hunts. So some hunts that we add will be there forever. Some will be there for that season in particular. Thinking of like holidays and stuff. So.
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah, sure. So like it sounds like a lot. And what I mean by that is that like, because there's certain early access launches that happen, and you're like, there's like a little bit here, and we're just getting this thing set up. And you come back in a few months' time, Would you say that like you could just start playing this and you can spend a lot of time in it? Like is it the intention from right now for this to be like your daily driver, or is it a case of no, this is just the foundations we're building?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. There is a lot, and you can definitely play, and there's a lot to do. It's not like, hey, this is early access, so everything is rough. Like we try, like we're our own like biggest critics, and like stuff that's in is polished and should feel like a game. Like it's not like
Sure.
it's not like super rough. Like stuff in there will feel good. There's a lot of stuff we want to add, a lot of stuff we're planning to add. So it's definitely not, complete. We're going to be adding to the story, forever. Like the story is going to keep going. So that's obviously where that's definitely something we're going to be adding to. But you can play from beginning to the end, and it's a complete experience. Like
it was hard. It was hard, scoping like how much is enough, and it definitely is a lot. But so many of the systems touch each other that it's like if you're like, oh, let's hold off on housing till like a later date, like you'll like so many of the resources and crafting components and stuff you get, like you'll be less excited about finding it if you have less stuff to do with it. And like that's just as one example. Like I think we we could have held back some stuff, I guess, and I mean we have, shockingly, but it is it's a decent amount for an early access. And
sure.
Hopefully, but I feel like we're always like our players just gonna blast through this and like
well, there always will be players that do, and then there's like everybody else, I guess, is just a bit more chilled with it. So
it's been encouraging though in beta, like people have spent like a lot of time like game just like complete. There's a lot of collection stuff too, like
more coming to we're one of the big things we're going to be adding is like the discovery system, where you'll actually be rewarded too for completing certain things and certain secrets, and maxing out a character will give you like discovery rewards. So there's a lot for sure. But yeah, I would say like what we have really is like there's a lot of content, but also a solid foundation that we're comfortable with players playing and giving us feedback on. Like that's the big. We're not we're not like releasing anything where we're like, we know this sucks, so the feedback is pointless. We're going to change it anyway. Stuff there is
that's refreshing. That's good.
That is that's a nice change. Can I say?
There's definitely stuff that we know could be improved already, and a lot of the feedback in early access to align with stuff we're like, okay, yes, we know we need to improve that. But it is solid enough that feedback that we get should actually be useful to us, so that we can improve it. And again, like. What I was mentioning before, like we don't want to work on something for like, and just keep holding it back. No, it's not ready. It's not ready. And like, it's years and years and years. And then we release it and it's like, players hate this. We need to completely change it. If we just released it 3 years ago, we could have gotten that feedback sooner and built it correctly, so we making sure we have the foundation that we can build upon and react to player feedback.
Yeah. And like even our Discord is like pretty active, and the stuff we got from beta, like both in the surveys and like we had like feature upvote and stuff, like it's often things that we're already like feeling are a problem, but there is a lot of new stuff that crops up there that we're like, this is a very good idea, and we have acted on quite a lot of it already. And even internally when we play together and we're testing, the feedback that comes out of it is like daunting at times. So it is good to get. But if the players are saying the same thing, like we can like help prioritize some of that stuff. It's like, okay, this is like game breaking. This is stuff that like everyone's saying we need. So let's do that first and like make our way down the list.
Yeah, Joe mentioned feature upvote, which is one of the tools we have to help filter like the most requested feedback. So players can leave feedback or like, issues they had with the game or things they liked, and then other people can see it and upvote it. So it'll filter like the most popular things to the top. And like, we know kind of like, okay, this is definitely something a lot of people are talking about. Like we should prioritize this sooner than we were going to, or like we weren't aware of it. We definitely should prioritize this for like, a future patch. And it helps us like know where to focus our efforts. And even like in game modes too, like we have our idea for housing and what that's going to be. And if it's like, oh, players are like way more into housing than we figured, well, we should put more resources into expanding that, then we might have been.
Spoiler alert, they're going to be very into housing. Okay,
I hope so.
They're going to be very into it.
We have people on the team that's like, I never do housing in games.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
nah, man. Yeah, that's right. Final Fantasy 14 shit.
I look at my house.
I'm so excited about housing. Yeah.
Like just coming back to something you said earlier, because I think at the beginning of the chat you sort of said like, oh, we made a joke. You guys were making a joke before we started recording, which is that like all the big dreams are in year 3, right? That's where all the big shit is coming, right? And it was clearly a joke, but you were sort of talking about when we did start recording, the idea that you're sort of slowly working towards this being like a MMO. Like, that's kind of what you said, right? That's the goal.
Yeah, I mean, so like. It's funny because before, at the tail end of Vigil, right, we had the 40K MMO, and like at that time, like there was a lot of people in the industry saying like, you just can't make an MMO now. Like you can't compete with WoW. It's like $100 bazillion. Like who can do that? And like I think there was a period of time there where nobody was really even trying, and because it is kind of hard to, and so like for a small studio like us that started with 4 people, and it's like, can we make like a JRPG kind of game with like 8 to 10 people? Like that wasn't even like, if you asked me for a list of like 50 games we could possibly do, an MMO just would not be on it for that reason. But
I don't like promising an MMO, because that is huge.
Yeah, we are not promising, but I mean, but we spent so many hours collectively playing MMOs together, and a lot of it was the social aspect. And we played EverQuest, Ultima Online. Like we go way back, like Shadow, like Spear shit. Like Lord of the Rings Online is kind of what we're like. Remember our fucking neighborhood in Lotro? Come on, man. My house is cool. I bought the house by the waterfall. I got the nice.
Me and Ryan had a house next to each other, and Joe was like,
"Yeah, they were like, come live next to us." I'm like, "Bro, the waterfall is dope. I'll just ride your mount over to my house." And we would like have our musical instruments like playing on street corners. Nerds, okay. MMOs, we love them. We played like Tier Online, whatever, every Lineage. Yeah. So given the chance to like, as we started working on this thing and it began to grow, we're like, this is kind of like scratching my MMO itch.
Sure.
In a way. I mean, it's action, it's, there's a lot that's different, but
I think a lot of it is basically capturing what made us love MMOs and trying to get that essence into this game. Even kind of like, Battle Chasers and Ruin King was like it's not a JRPG, but it is like, it's kind of like, let's take the essence and do our own thing with it. So it's not like we're out to be like, we need to be the next MMO. It's like, no, we love this. We just want to make stuff that we love.
And we're still a pretty small team for this kind of game. We've grown a lot in the last year, but it's still like a fraction of the team size of a lot of the guys making these kind of games. So the more support we get, the more successful the game is, the more we're going to grow and make even more stuff. We just need resources, and but our hearts are in it, and so far the player base has been so cool. Like people are already like writing fan fiction and shipping characters and whatever. It's like so much fan art every day. We're like, what? The game's not even out yet. So I'm super excited about that, and it really does keep us going. Like you have no idea. I think for this kind of game too, more so than like a one-off box title that you just ship and like you're done, move on to the next one. Like this is like, it really is like a community, as corny as it sounds. Like it's us working with like the players, and like we actually can incorporate your feedback. We have years to do this. So it's not just, it's falling on deaf ears.
Yeah, like that's actually a good question, because you say like we've got years to do this, and obviously the live service space right now, it's a pretty tough business, at least from the outside looking in. I'm not sure if you in game dev land see it very differently, but certainly we see a narrative of like there's a lot of these live services. A lot of them are demanding our time and money. with battle passes and this and that. A lot of them get spun up, and then 6 to 12 months later they get decommissioned. Like just this week, Gundam Evolution got is announced as getting deleted in November or whatever. I swear, like every month there's a new live service that gets announced that it's going offline. So I know it's a bit of a downer question, but I think it's an important one to put to,
rain on my positivity.
But I mean, like, I just feel like, how do you guys, when you see that going on around you, like, how do you process that? And what do you see in that landscape? And like, how does that make you feel?
You're storming the beach and you're like, and your friends are like,
yeah.
Guys, they're getting picked off one by one. We're like,
sure.
But, yes, we see it. We're very aware of it. Obviously, it's important to our business. And like, but
we're also like, we don't really set out to like, we don't necessarily want to be making a JRPG like tournaments game is like, we're not doing that to make money. Like that's not gonna, it's like the chances that it's gonna blow up and make tons of money. It's like we just love it and we know we can do it well. So that's kind of like we kind of know what we can do well and like. And it's been resonating, so we've had some reassurance that we're on the right track at least. And most important, like from my perspective, is that like in early access, people play it, and worst case, they're like, I want more, but I like it, so that we can add more. Like that's what we can do.
Honestly, like I think the most exciting thing about early access is that finally it'll be like in more people's hands. Beta was great. It was mostly positive. And if we continue that trend, if beta was like bad and then early access is bad, like we would definitely like start to freak out. But so far it's been very encouraging.
Even if there was anything people had a big problem with, we can fix it. Like it's, we're actually trying to get feedback as efficiently as we can so we can react to it. Like I know it's like, it's not lip service that we're just like, yeah, let's build this game together, community. Like we are seriously like, we want to make a game people like to play.
Well, just rounding out, I guess, just some details and logistics and what have you. So Wayfinders is coming to PC or consoles as well, or is it just a PC early access?
Yeah, early access is PC and PlayStation. So PS4.
And PlayStation. Okay, cool. Cool.
And then we're going to be going free to play after early access. 2 early access seasons, which are 3 months apiece-ish. Okay. And then it's going to be coming to more later.
Okay. What's the deal with the no X?
Okay, that's it. I got the
yeah. So can you guys talk about the no Xbox thing? Like, is there any reason for that? Is it a dev thing? Is it a commercial thing? Like, can't talk about that? You're looking over your shoulder right now. This is for the RSS people.
No, it's just early access.
It's a thing.
Early access.
It's a thing.
Sony and PC right now.
Okay. Fair
and
enough.
It's going to be cross-platform, possibly. So if you're playing early access on PC,
right,
PlayStation, and then it's free to play, you can load it up on whatever other console it might be on, and you'll have characters and stuff.
Got it. Nice. What about mobile? Is there a mobile port planned at some point down the road? Don't know. Question marks. 3 shrugs. Yeah, right. Okay, cool.
I mean, yeah.
He's just telling me right now, PC and PlayStation.
Oh, got it. All right. Yeah, sure.
And it is going to be a fully free-to-play game. But during the early access period, you have to buy in by way of a founders pack, correct? And there are different tiers of founders packs giving you different things. And what's the basic cheapest founders pack? Like, what's the minimum people are going to have to spend to be able to play this week?
Be $20. So
okay.
That's the cheapest to be able to play. And it goes, there's multiple packs based on what, and you can always upgrade too. So if you are trying for $20 and you're like, this is awesome, I want to upgrade you, that's an option. You don't need to rebuy it or anything at full.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm really looking forward to it personally. As I said, I played one of the betas very briefly a little while ago because, as I said, schedules didn't line up, but I really wanted to boot it up, and I booted it up. And can I just say quickly, the art is amazing. Like the visual design that you guys have landed at is just like crazy good. And, you know, just really loved looking around these worlds. And then I just sort of watched a whole bunch of preview content as well, and huge amounts of positive things to say from different people. My editor, Austin, he's an MMO fiend, and he's just all about this. He's just so excited for it. And yeah, I'm really keen to get my hands on it. Thank you so much for being here today. You know, it's really awesome for you to make the time. We know how busy it is for you guys. We're just about to ship. So we really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today. And just want to say a huge, you know, good luck, and definitely cheering for you. And hopefully we'll have you back on in year 3. And we can talk about all the cool shit.
Thanks for the encouragement, by the way.
Yeah.
Good luck is one thing. It's more like get back to work.
Yeah, seriously.
All right. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Everyone, we've got a pretty cool exclusive offer for all of our FPS users. 20% off Liquid IV. Thank you to Liquid IV for supporting the podcast and sponsoring this episode. Boys, what do you need to hydrate for? Tell me.
Gaming, being a gamer, existing as a gamer dries you out, and you need to hydrate. Have you ever had a late night gaming session and you forget to hydrate? It absolutely sucks. So Liquid IV has really come in pretty clutch.
I actually really like it. Because first of all, I don't know that we have this in Australia. Or like, you probably can import it or whatever, but it's like, can you guys buy this on the shelves in the States?
It's in Target.
Okay. I don't think we have it in Australia on shelves. Like, I'm sure you can just like order it online or whatever. But never had it before. Had it. I love it. I'm addicted to it. In particular, because they have a grape flavor. Now, one thing that we don't have in Australia is grape flavored things. Like, we don't do this. Like, you guys do this, right? You have grape flavored drinks and
Is
whatever.
that real?
Grape
You don't
or
have
grape?
You don't have grape.
Grape. What do you
grape.
think I said? What? No, grape. We don't have like grape flavored stuff. And
Right.
and I love that flavor for some weird reason. And so the fact that I get to have this now is I'm like, yeah, cool. I'm down. So I'm just going to keep importing Liquid IV at this point, because that's it. That's how I get my grape hit now, outside of, you know, the old vino.
Grape is actually, it's called green grape. And there is also new white peach and lemon lime. White peach is my favorite. I'm just like a sucker for anything peach. And it's super easy. You just have the packet, slam it in some water, and you're good to go.
It's like
Personally-
Nick Cage in the Face Off.
Personally, I am a lemonade guy. So the lemon lime flavor, or to be more precise, I want to make sure I'm doing it. Yeah, it is lemon lime. I got it right. Lemon lime flavor is the one that I use, mostly because it just straight up tastes like lemonade. That's always nice, nice, refreshing taste.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm a lemon lime girl. It reminds me, I've said this before, but there is a drink that I used to have back in the UK that I can't get over here, but this tastes exactly like it, and it hydrates me instead of, you know, just making me into a little shriveled prune because I've drank too much sugar.
Instead of straight up water.
Water.
And my
That's
favorite
right.
thing, and I know it sounds like I'm like a corny commercial guy right now, but like legitimately 0 sugar and no artificial sweeteners. That kind of thing can drive me nuts. So they actually nail it here. It still tastes really good.
Real flavor, real hydrating, now sugar-free. Grab your Liquid IV Hydration Multiplier sugar-free in bulk nationwide at Costco, or get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use codes FRIENDS at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order using the promo code FRIENDS at liquidiv.com. And hey, just to reiterate, using this code really supports our podcast and keeps us being able to produce regular episodes. So make sure that if you are in fact interested in using Liquid IV and pick it up today, to use code FRIENDS at checkout for 20% off your order.
All right, we have a user question. Remember, if you have a question for us, hit up contact@friendspersecond.com. And we love reading them. And we obviously read them out on the show. This one, I just described it as Gerard Core. So thank you, Samuel Smith, for this one. As a big nostalgia person, I have come to enjoy the classic Nintendo games like Star Fox, F-Zero, Earthbound, and Kid Icarus. All of these games, sadly, have not had modern-day releases, except cameos in Super Smash Bros., etc. Which Nintendo IP do you wish was brought back from the grave? Gerard.
Okay, let's get a little technical for a second. Star Fox has come back a few times. Okay. And just because I am the one person in the world that loved Star Fox Zero doesn't mean it didn't exist. It was a fun as hell game. And if Nintendo decides to re-release it on Switch with modern controls, people would play it and love it. There's some, sorry, I gotta get my Star Fox box for a second. There's so many people out there
Your Starbucks.
who my Starbucks 64 box. There's so many people out there who just in their reviews, and I'll call you out, reviewers out there, you know who you are. You gave up on playing the game because you couldn't figure out how to use the Pro Controller. Come on, my guys. It's your job to play a game. I completed the game. It's a good game. Just because you gave up doesn't mean it sucks. Just saying. Anyways, look it off that's my box. That's my Starbucks. I think it's a shame that we don't get some of the more beloved Nintendo IP stuff. I think it's absolutely time for a new F-Zero. It has been years. It's been years and years and years. There are so many other indie studios who have made a 2D version of F-Zero, who have made a 3D version of F-Zero that are better than any of the other F-Zero games out there. If Nintendo is so paranoid about bringing back F-Zero for a more modern day market, just give the IP to someone else, just like they did with Metroid Dread. If they're so concerned about messing it up, try letting someone else give it a shot. I think that would be great. I would bring back F-Zero, personally speaking.
Do you reckon there's demand for it? Like, realistically, how many people do you think it would sell big numbers in F-Zero game?
Let me ask you this: how many people bought Pikmin 4?
I don't know.
A lot in Japan.
Enough,
about at this point in time, about 400,000 people in the States bought Pikmin 4.
Well, like, that's cool, but at the same time, I'm sure, and I think Miyamoto himself has talked about the fact that Pikmin is never designed to kind of pop off. It's never designed to be a big sort of game.
Do you think that's the thing they let him make? It's like, all right, mate, make us another Mario. You'll get your Pikmin.
Yeah.
Well, and Pikmin 4's been done for years, according to Miyamoto. Like he announced it several years ago. Even when in the middle of the Switch launch, he was like, "Pikmin 4's done." Like it's been done
just let
for.
me release my game.
Yeah, like he got on record saying that Pikmin 4 had been done for a while. Wow. The fact that there is no new type of Earthbound or the meme of Mother 3 never coming to the States because of translation issues, whatever you want to throw it out to, is kind of weird. I feel like there's enough people out there who are always campaigning those things. I'm one of them. I'm always like, hey, Earthbound's great, F-Zero's great. Let's get more of those IPs. I think it's definitely weird that Nintendo doesn't take those chances more often than not, because if you think about it, there's only been a total of maybe 5 F-Zero games. Which sounds like a lot, but it's definitely like there was the Super Nintendo one, and then there was the Game Boy Color one, or a Game Boy Advance one, and then there was the GameCube one, and then one was an arcade, and like maybe there's a couple more I already forgot about. But like to nowadays, when your player base on your Switch is 120 plus million people, and no one's ever played an F-Zero before, it's to me it just feels like the right time to do stuff like that. Get weird. Let's get a new Star Fox. Let's get a new F-Zero, a new Earthbound. Let people experience stuff they haven't gotten to.
Sorry, a big recognizable character too, like Captain Falcon. I feel like on a box looks cool. Yeah. People are like, "Who the hell is that guy? Is that Judge Dredd? Is that Turbo Man? What is that?" It's so cool.
Apparently, Obama is a Falcon main as well. So in Smash.
Oh,
yeah.
Fascinating.
What?
Obama is a Falcon main in Smash, apparently. So That's something worth mentioning, right?
Yes. 2 days ago, GameSpot.
Yeah, that's right.
Wrote an article about it.
Yeah, you should know this, Lucy. Come on, man. Come on.
I don't see everything that goes up on the website. We publish a lot of content.
You know what I want? You know what I want from Nintendo? I want a new Blast Corps game. That's what I want, man.
Let's get specific though, Ralph.
Here we go.
That's not Nintendo. That's Rare.
It's published by Nintendo, so they would probably own the IP, right?
I believe, is Blast Corps on the Rare collection? Maybe not.
I don't know, but I don't know who owns the IP, but I know Nintendo published it.
Gemini doesn't count.
Yeah, that would be nice to bring that back. That was such a nice aesthetic, wasn't it? I don't know.
Cool.
Man, was it a nice aesthetic?
Yeah.
Man, I remember it being really nice. But yeah, man. But Blaskov's really was my jam back in the day. I loved that shit. It was so hard. God, it was so tough. But yeah, it was. What else is there like that these days? There's that teardown game, I guess.
Yeah.
The voxel stuff, but very different. Not really shooting for the same thing.
Blastcore is in Rare Replay. So it feels like Rare, if they wanted to, could bring it back.
Okay, there you go. Well, they don't want to, obviously. Maybe a crossover in Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves, Blast Corps. How's that work? I don't know. We'll see.
Crazier things have happened.
Yeah, sure.
Yep, what about you, Jake? What's the Nintendo IP you'd love to see come back?
Wave Race, or like
hell yeah,
1080.
1080 snowboarding.
Yeah.
Oh my
It's
god,
time.
yes.
Bring back
But in terms of like
snowboarding. I'm in.
recognizable, like just sticking with that, the Excite games, like Excite Bike.
Oh yeah.
Excite
You could
Bike?
do a whole cool franchise. Like, wasn't there an Excite Truck game or something like that? So like we could do like Excite Bike, Excite Truck, Excite Boats, Excite Sports. I think that'd be fun to just like make fun little racing type things, but almost in like this old school quirky Nintendo niche. I mean, like we have like the Hot Wheels Unleashed game. We have like that new Lego game. Like we have these fun arcadey vehicle based games. I feel like Nintendo could do their own subgenre like spin on it. I'd like to see that.
Bring back Rob the Robot. Bring back Duck Hunt Dog. Bring back Game & Watch. Let's just the bottom of the barrel stuff. I'm ready for it.
Literally anything.
Would Duck Hunt fly today? I mean, probably, right? There's hunting games today.
Look,
yeah, they're really
I thought
popular.
you meant like the duck fly, and I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes,
if they're
ducks
in,
fly.
I think if they were in Smash, I think they at this point they would fly to some extent, right?
I just miss that dog. I want that dog in a lot of other games. He honestly, they should. No, this is too unhinged. I'm not gonna say it.
You have to say it.
You have to
say
okay,
it.
They should make Duck Hunt Dog like the Clippy of Nintendo interfaces. So like he's just on all the menus, and like you click on a game and he jumps out from behind it and he's like hoo-hoo, like how he was in the old game. I would like that.
I agree. Lucy, did you have one?
No.
No.
I didn't really have Nintendo until I got a Game Boy Color for Pokemon, and even then, like I didn't really dip my toe into the old Nintendo catalog. So I'm a fraud basically, and I'm leaving the podcast. No, I'm kidding.
Well, you do have your new Game Boy.
I got a Game Boy Pocket.
You got a Game Boy Pocket now.
And you
that's
got
right.
Link's Awakening
and
DX.
I have Link's Awakening.
Hell yeah.
So
Which you gotta have you played the remake from a few years ago? Play that one first and then play the remake. I'd love to see what you think.
Well, I have my flight to Gamescom coming up, so 11 hours. So
11 hours. That's a short flight. I like it. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, for you.
Traveling from Europe. My total travel was 30 hours.
Okay.
It's a pretty short game. You can knock it out in a couple hours.
Okay, sweet. Oh, that makes it even more appealing to me. I'll report back. I know I've said that to you before about Link's Awakening, but like now I literally have no excuse.
It's true.
It's true. What other things have we been playing other than Baldur's Gate? So Gerard, what have you been playing recently?
I completely played through and completed WrestleQuest, but I don't think I can talk about it. I mean, I can. I guess the reviews are out.
Yeah, the reviews are out. Yeah.
And the embargo is out. So I can talk about WrestleQuest. I just can't really, and editor's notes, Stu, if you need footage, I've got you. Yeah, I can talk about WrestleQuest if you guys want to hear about WrestleQuest a little bit.
Yeah, I do, because it's like I'm not into wrestling at all, but I used to live with Greg Miller, big into wrestling. Literally has a TV show on the WWE now.
Yeah.
I work with Dan Reichert, former WWE employee.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I always feel bad that I'm not into wrestling, but I also feel like I don't know how to get into wrestling. Also, being friends with you.
I can show you the world.
And is it through WrestleQuest? Like, if I played it, would I get it?
To a degree, yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Ralph, you had your finger up. I didn't know if you were.
Well, I had only one question as a bit of a kickoff.
Yes.
Because one thing you told me, or you told us in the chat, was that this is not a short game.
No, it is a long game.
Because like when I saw this game, I'm like, oh, that looks like it would be a fun 10 hours-ish. That looks cute.
Sir. Yeah. No, sir.
This game is how long exactly?
It took me 70 hours to completely beat, and I got to credits at hour 60. So I spent 10 hours doing cleanup, and then I had to do a secondary playthrough to get one achievement, which was half the game. So in the end, it took me roughly 95 to 100 hours to complete the game.
So I guess my question is at the top, like, does this have enough legs to sustain like 60 plus hours?
I think so, because this is an RPG that's focused on a story the whole time. Like, once you learn the mechanics fairly early on, and there's not a lot of new mechanics introduced to you over time, you almost get your entire toolkit. And that's not a pun because it's about, action figures, but you get your whole RPG toolkit within the first 2 hours of the game. And then the rest is very much you are centered towards plot. There are side quests and dungeons you can kind of stumble upon and explore. You can also knock them out in advance if you're just like, oh, I want to go check out this place or that place. But the kind of the elevator pitch on WrestleQuest, for those of you guys that don't know, this is like a world within a world. You are in a toy box, and in this toy box original world, there are action figures, and very much parroting what we've all grown up with. So things like there's a character named Barbie who is like a teacher who teaches kids how to live their life. There's the main character. There's two main characters. There's Muchacho Man Randy Santos.
Nice.
Who his whole arc and story is that he wants to be the living legacy of the actual wrestler Macho Man Randy Savage. So this game has actual licensing rights of classic wrestlers. So you're gonna meet Jake the Snake Roberts, Diamond Dallas Page, Luna Vachon, The Rock's father, Rocky Johnson's in the game. Wow. And every wrestler has a deity statue that you go and visit. And these deity statues are like meant to be almost like a museum living piece for the wrestlers. The wrestlers are in the game, and they either fulfill one of three roles. They give you a rare item from their career. So you get like Coco Beware, for instance, had a parrot. So you get his parrot as an item, and you have like a 1 in 4 chance of completely negating an attack. You can either have them as a summon. So you can summon Andre the Giant to come in and flip the ring and do damage to everyone.
Awesome.
That's cool.
Does he offer anyone a peanut?
Oh, I wish. I don't get
that reference.
That's
Princess
from
Bride.
The Princess Bride.
Oh,
because he's in The Princess Bride as the giant. Inconceivable. So, and then the other role they play is they're managers. And so managers are a mechanic where you can call them in and ask for advice, but the advice really is a mechanic manipulation. So for instance, Diamond Dallas Page, shout outs to DDP Yoga. His whole mechanic is that he's all about doing yoga, because he has his whole thing is that as a retired wrestler, as a Hall of Famer, he has his own service called DDP Yoga, where he not only like works with people who subscribe to the service, but he works with older wrestlers to get them in body shape, ready form, and all of his mechanics.
Wait, is this real? Is this a real thing?
Yes,
that's a real life thing. He's
DDP
actually
Yoga.
I thought this was like a storyline in the game. Like, oh, that's funny.
You can go on the App Store right now on your phone and download DDP Yoga and subscribe to the service.
That's cool.
So you're welcome. You're welcome, Diamond Dallas Page. But in the game, in the context of the game, he is a healer. So you can call him in. You can call him in and do a couple different commands, like do this, do that. Do you guys ever see the Super Mario Brothers cartoon, the Super Short? Yeah. That was hosted by Lou Albano, the wrestler, and he's in the game, and you can have him as the manager. There's no Chris Pratt or Mario references, in case you're wondering. There's no, because Nintendo's a scary beast. But yeah, so this is a game. While it is like based in a toy box setting, the wrestlers are very real and they are part of the storyline. So you have Muchacho Man Randy Santos, and then you have Brink Logan and the Logan family, which represents the Hart family. So the Owen Hart, Bret Hart, Stu Hart. The legacy of Canadian wrestling revolves around the Hart family, and so you have these two characters who are trying to become and honor the legacy of wrestling in this toy box world. And the game is about how their paths kind of culminate in this gigantic collide as the characters kind of go on their arcs of being a good guy or being a bad guy. And there's kind of these shadow organizations. And so you basically go around and you conquer, if you want to say conquer, because that's what Vince McMahon did in the early days, the WWE and whatnot. You conquer territories and you become champions in certain areas, and you meet characters that join you along the way. And because it's a toy box, you don't just get wrestlers who join you. You get a car named Vanetta, who is a literal transformer who turns into a car. And her whole mechanic is she'll find like a weird toy or a broken thing that's not applicable, and she'll be like, I can transform into that, and suddenly that's her move. She comes in the scene and transforms into this cool thing. One of the coolest things, if you're a big wrestling fan, is that there are tag team moves and triple tag team moves. So you walk in the room in the mechanics menu and in a battle, and you go, I want to prep for a tag team. So you say prep for tag team, and then the other person comes in and gets their turn, and you choose from the list of tag teams moves that are available from. And these moves are designed about your party. So your party arrangement is like, oh, I want these tag team moves from these guys. I want these guys to have these tag team moves. And then they have a triple or two triple tag team moves that really kind of bring everything together.
And it's turn-based really RPG battles, right?
Yes, it very much is turn-based. It very much simulates, I would say the closest thing I would say it simulates to is Mario RPG. In that every single battle has a quick time or timed mechanic that you have to be aware of. So you're not just kind of sitting there and like pressing A and then watching it happen. You're engaged. It might be like, hey, mash this button. It might be do the correct button sequence. And as time goes on with the moves, they get so over the top like wrestling is and really explosive. But one of the more controversial things I've read online about the game, and I kind of agree with it, the pacing is a little all over the place because you'll be in the middle of a dungeon with Muchacho Man and his party that he's kind of recruited, and then halfway through the dungeon, you'll go back to the Logan family or the Brink family, and like now you're back with them and doing this whole thing. And so the pacing back and forth stuff is a little off. But if you're a wrestling fan, if you're not a wrestling fan, the biggest thing is if you're an RPG fan, you're gonna love this game. It's just you have to sit there and learn a little bit about wrestling to really enjoy it. But also if you're a big content creator fan, there's a lot of people in this game as NPCs. Some are even mechanics. Or leading to becoming a mechanic. The Kind of Funny guys, the whole crew's in there. I'm in the game as a talkable NPC. Angry Joe's in there. A lot of the wrestling world YouTubers are in there too, and a lot of the podcasts. And that's kind of a cool thing is that you see these real life wrestlers and you see their podcasts are kind of woven within the storyline of the game. So again, if you're not a big wrestling person, I know it might be a little hard to digest, but if you're an RPG person, mechanically speaking, it's very, very, very fun. And hey, if you are like, I just want to play the game for the story, there are awesome accessibility options that just let you plow through the whole thing. You can do God mode, you can do auto pinning and auto like maximum hit, and you get to enjoy the story, and it doesn't ruin anything for you outside of that. But one last thing before I stop the wrestling tirade is that not every fight ends in a pin, but when you fight a fellow wrestler, there's a pin mechanic where it's like a mini game where there's an arrow that goes in a square and you have to hit on time 1, 2, 3 to pin them. So you can kind of feel that some fights are just like a scrap, others are like an actual wrestling match, and boss fight mechanics are about telling the story. So if you're going to a huge boss fight and it's not about killing the boss, It's about let the boss pin you, misfall and pin you 1 or 2 times. Perform a certain move and fail the quick time event. There's like many key moments that you have to perform in
put on a show.
Exactly, because it's about the wrestling promotions, not about winning and losing. And so it's about putting on a good performance throughout the story, which makes every boss fight super unique and way different from the ones before. And there's tons of mini games too that reference other mini games. So there's any other games like Jump King. Remember that game that everyone was obsessed with? There's a mini game about that. There's like a car racing game. It's got all kinds of stuff. It's a big love letter to wrestling. It's a big love letter to RPGs. Highly recommend it. And it's coming out, I think August 22nd is the new date.
Yes. It just moved, right? Because it was meant to be.
It literally was supposed to come out this week, but it got delayed. So I guess they found a game breaking bug. So they're pushing it back a couple more weeks.
Good reason to delay.
Yes. Yeah, WrestleQuest, it's sick. It's tight. It's also not that expensive. So
it's like, yeah, I think that sounds so awesome. The truth is, I would actually love to check that out if I knew that it wasn't as long as it was, because there's so many big games that are coming at the moment. And
I didn't know it was that long going into it. I was like, how long are we into this? Like, this because
I feel like this would be such a cool palate cleanser game where I'm like, hey, I've just played through this fucking Armored Core and whatever. Now I'm gonna go fucking around and play. Yeah, exactly. Like the way I played Dave the Diver. But Dave the Diver, I understand, is a good solid 20 to 30 hours. So that's actually pretty long in itself. But I mean, yeah, I really like the sound of that. I think that sounds super awesome. I would love to check it out. But I just know that I don't have time for that at the moment, which is really bumming me out because it just does sound like and I don't even like wrestling. Like I just don't. But even that, it sounds really awesome to me, you know?
Christmas game.
I feel like even then my backlog is still going to be massive. Like, because there's just so many big games this year, you know? Yeah. And, I don't know. It's a bummer. No. But I hope it does well. I hope it launches well for the team.
I hope so too. It got some pretty good... It's got some good reviews. It's got some good reviews in the pipeline. Couple mixed ones, but like not everyone's gonna like everything, and that's okay. But that's what I've been playing.
Nice. Yeah. Jake, what about you?
I'll touch on Atlas Fallen a little bit.
I'm
still working my way through it.
By this one.
It's hard to recommend in such an intense year of gaming. Because it has a lot of
very
shortcomings.
Diplomatic.
Yes. Well, that's the thing is because I don't actively dislike it at all. It actually checks a lot of my weird boxes. I love third-person action adventure type games, especially when the characters like give off like Darksiders vibes or like very like Todd McFarlane-y cool stuff.
Yeah.
It's got some pretty fun combat. I like the combat. I like the character building. Essentially, you traverse around kind of a semi-open world and you have these sand powers. So you can glide around on the sand like a cool magic guy, jump around, and then you harness the power of the sands in combat. So it's like hack and slashy, but it's the character forming and slinging weapons that are conjured out of sand. And so that's cool because it's based around this whole momentum meter. So the more momentum that you build in this meter, the bigger and crazier weapons and your moveset gets. But as your momentum grows, it's like your weapons are crazier and bigger and you cause more damage, but you're also more vulnerable. And then you can also choose when to spend that momentum on special ultimate attacks too. So like you can balance out like your risk reward, how much damage, how vulnerable you are in real time in third person action battles cruising around. So like there's fun little variations to kind of change up the hack and slash formula. And I really like that. The problem is it's just like everything else. The world, the questing, the story, it's not hitting with me. It feels incredibly generic right from the title of the game. Atlas Fallen. And the problem with me is that I really like Deck 13. I really love the original. They made the Surge and the Surge 2. I really love the original Surge. And also the beverage. Maybe it was just like maybe it was just like when the Surge came out, it came out of nowhere, right? It was just like, what is this? This is so cool. So Atlas Fallen is weird. It's got like this smooth, kind of well thought out combat system. It's not perfect. The camera fucks you over. The lock on isn't perfect, but that kind of comes with these style of games sometimes. So that's fine for me. I have a tolerance for that. It's really just like, I don't care about what's going on. And they do invest in that. They do spend time in NPCs and dialogue and this world with this lore, but it's just not hitting for me. And that's a shame because I like killing stuff with cool magic sand swords. So it's tough to recommend. It's not a full price game, and it is co-op. So you and one other dude can cruise around in the sand and chop up big bad guys. And I like that, but it's hard right now. I'd say like, don't write it off, especially if you're like me and you do like these types of games. Maybe at some point, but yeah, it's kind of where I'm at with it. Has anyone else touched it at all or no?
No.
I have, but only in the preview block.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to review, because I did a preview where I played through one of the zones, and I spent a good sort of like 3+ hours in that, and I really cleared out everything, did all the things, the boss, whatever. And I walked away from it being like, okay, cool. I can see how that has some good foundations, and if you can build on that, that could be a pretty cool game. I didn't get the chance to review it because I was on vacation. The review code came through when I was on holiday, and so Austin did the review, and that will be up by the time on my channel by the time this video goes up. He did not like this game, and he doesn't have many kind words for it for all the reasons that you have said. Everything basically 1-to-1. I guess for him, the way he described it to me, just a lot of those things like camera issues or sloppy combat or the poor story, they kind of just hit him harder to the point where they all piled up and he was like, nah, I'm out. Like, it's not the worst game. It's not offensively bad. It's just he was really looking for the things that would hook him, and they weren't there. And some of the fundamentals the game just couldn't get right. But what I was really surprised about is he finished it in like 9 hours. And this really looks like a game that is about 20+ hours long. And, I thought when I played through the preview block, that one biome, 3 hours long, I'm like, okay, surely there's a good, 5, 6, 7 other biomes available. The game is going to offer a lot more diversity in terms of open world tasks. The game will sort of bloom after this point. But no, there are only 3 biomes. They all actually kind of look the same. And in terms of their structure, they don't really change from biome to biome. They have the same sorts of, open world activities. And it just kind of feels like it just kind of goes on and then it's over in, 9 or 10 hours. And I was like really surprised when he told me this, because he played through it all. And I'm like, oh, I'm sure he'll have a good time with this. That'll be fun. And when he told me this, I'm like, what? How did this happen? Because like Deck 13, like you said, Jake, they're really cool. And the Surge was awesome and full of all these interesting ideas. It was such an innovative product. And I was just like, I don't understand how this happened. Like, why? I really want to know why they made this in the first place, because it's quite different to the Surge and Lords of the Fallen before that. It's a big, I don't know if they're like trying to go for something more accessible, more mainstream, and the whole Darksiders thing versus the Souls, like, I don't know. But it just, whatever reason it was, it doesn't seem like it's come together properly, which is a real shame.
And it feels like there's a lot too, because it's like you're also constantly given opportunities to like find treasure chests or target enemies, like large enemies with different body parts, like target their body parts first to then get even more loot. And all of it is like elements to craft new perks to put in your perk slots. And there's so many different little ultimates and perks and special abilities. Like there's a lot with a bunch of stats. And for such like a short game and like a simpler game, it's kind of weird. Like it almost feels like, again, like it's like they got some things figured out, but not here.
I wonder
not
if
for this.
I wonder if this had like a much grander ambition, and they were going through the development cycle, and then eventually, for some reason, they just had to kind of like pull up and then be like, well, what can we ship? And it seems smaller and less ambitious, and less interesting than what they've previously done. And I wonder what the behind the scenes of this game is, because it just seems so odd for a studio to put out something as good and as ambitious and as interesting as The Surge 2, and then take what seems like massive steps back. And by the way, the reviews for this are out. It's sitting at like 68 or 67 on OpenCritic. It's getting between 5 and 7 out of 10 across the board. No one is really writing home about this one, saying, hey, you got to play this. Everyone's just like, look, it's fine-ish. And The Surge, not everyone loved The Surge, but a lot of people really liked The Surge. And, it just had a certain X factor that could get its hooks into you, And this just doesn't seem like it's got that, which is a real shame. So, yeah, it does feel like Game Pass kind of material. Again, as you've said, Jake, it's a stacked year. It's hard to recommend, even at a discount price. It does feel like it will eventually arrive on Game Pass, and it probably feels like that's going to be the best way to experience it.
I think there's going to be some people that kind of dig it, though. I think if some people get into the fighting and do it with a friend, I don't think you're going to like get hooked up. There's not going to be people out there who are like hooked on the lore for this.
Yeah.
the Vati video of Atlas Fallen.
Yeah.
No, and
yes.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Ralph, other than Baldur's Gate, what have you been playing anything?
Not really, to be honest, because I was playing Dave the Diver. I booted up a little bit of Atlas Fallen to see how it ran on the ROG Ally, and it didn't run super well, so I didn't stop that. I stopped that. And then I got home and I just played a lot of Baldur's Gate and a lot of Marvel Snap, actually. While I traveled, I played Marvel Snap so much that I hit max level for the first time ever. Oof. And so that's just a thing that I've done now.
Can I ask you a question?
And you didn't...
in terms of the ROG Ally, has that kind of like...
Yeah.
Is that in your main thing now? Like over Steam Deck? Or?
Yeah. I took that with me over the Steam Deck. As a bit of a test run as well, just to like, okay, let's really put this through its paces and really see what it can do. And it was really illuminating for me, because usually when I use these devices, I use them at home. And I'm like, cool, I can just plug this in whenever I like. But when I'm on the road, it really forced me to confront the issue with battery. And it is a debilitating problem. It's not good.
Wait, is it better or worse than the Steam Deck battery?
It's worse, but only because correct. You have more power and you can pump it and you can produce better visuals. But it's also like, well, if you choose to do that, then the battery is just like, you're lucky if you get an hour and a bit out of it.
Oh, you
play
joking?
It properly. No, an hour and a bit. So
do you feel like the solution is to is making a better, bigger battery an optimal solution?
No, it's not. And I guess this is what all these guys, the hardware manufacturers are. This is why Steam made the decision that it made with regards to its capped power output at 15 watt, I think it is. And they set it there and they're like, this is what we can do. And it was the right call. And it's the same with the Switch. I forget what the Switch is capped at, but they capped it a certain amount and they're like, this is what we can commit to in terms of getting the battery life correct. The flip side to that with the ROG Ally is you can lower the power and you can run it as low as 10 watts. It's just that everything runs really shit then, right? So, but you can also set it to 15 and, it will then perform similar to the Steam Deck. But it's kind of like you're also having to, if you're going to do that, you have to then deal with all the bullshit associated with Windows 11 on a handheld, which really sucks. Yeah. And the Steam Deck is so much better to use at that point. That unified system. But then again, it's like you have to jump through so many hoops if you want to do BattleNet or stuff on Epic Games Store, whatever. So there are trade-offs either way, but I think I come back to what I said earlier, which is that I think overall the Steam Deck is the best option if you are looking for a handheld. It's the simplest, it's the best balance in terms of battery life, and off you go. But if you're a real enthusiast who knows exactly what you're doing and don't mind like fucking around with stuff, then the ROG Ally is, I think, a better option because you just have that flexibility to make it more powerful and to put more on it more easily. So, but yeah, I took it with me and I was happy with it for the way I was using it. I just wish that it did have more battery life is all.
Yeah, that makes sense. To round us off then, I played something completely different to the rest of you guys. I played a game called Venba, which was absolutely lovely, and it takes an hour and a half to complete. If you are just looking for something to just kind of fill in the gap, it is. I played it for the first time at GDC earlier this year. It was on, I think, the Xbox like booth thing, and it's this game about this woman named Vemba. And in the 80s, she and her husband moved to Canada from India. And the whole game is about connecting to your culture and your family through food. So the main gameplay, like, it's not, leveling up or anything in this game. You are creating dishes from India that you remember as a child because your mother has written you a cookbook. So when Venba leaves, her mum writes all her favorite recipes into this cookbook, but over time and over where some of the instructions are kind of missing or they're like rubbed or something, you can't really see them. So there's a little bit of elements of trial and error. And then she kind of talks and, says, oh, I remember my mum used to do this or whatever. And then she and her husband, they're not loving it in Canada. They're struggling. And then they have a baby who is named Carvin. But the kid is kind of rejecting his culture a little bit when he gets to school because it makes him stand out for all the wrong reasons. So he wants to be called Kevin. And it's about kind of the relationship between the parents wanting him to accept his culture, him wanting to kind of go out on his own and fit in, and how it all wraps together in the love of food. And it was beautiful. Like, I cried. It was really good. Like, the music in there. And it's, Indian culture is not something that I can relate to personally. I am not from India. However, I can fully relate to having a relationship with your parents when generational gaps are so different. I can fully relate to being an immigrant and all of the foibles that brings. I can't, obviously, there are things in there about, the husband character, like he struggles at work because his English isn't good. I can't relate to that. But there are so many lovely messages that it's like, I implore literally everyone to play it. Hour and a half. Give it a go.
How did you find it? How did this come to you?
So it was, I think I saw it in a Wholesome Direct.
Right.
It was in Wholesome Games Direct. And then I played it at GDC. And I didn't actually realize, it turns out that my old roommate, Jen, her company, Pop Agenda, ended up doing like the marketing for it. So that's where I got my code from. I just like hit them up and I was like, hey, can I get a code? I played this game at GDC and it was cool. Yeah, and I just loved it. I was sick this week. And on Monday, I just kind of was like, I want something that is kind of like comfort foody as a game. Like I was feeling too sick to play some Baldur's Gate at that point. And I played it and it was like, there is even a point where, Venba is making food for her son who is sick. And I was like, oh, this is nice. It's lovely. Fully recommend it.
Yeah, it sounds cool.
Wow.
Sounds like a cool story to tell through different mechanics.
It's really cool. And like did you ever play Assemble with Care?
No.
So it's an Apple Arcade game made by Us2, who made Monument Valley. And so I also, if you have Apple Arcade, definitely play Assemble with Care. Very, very sweet story about someone who's like, their job is just they fix things. And it's this very tactile way of interacting with a video game where you take things apart and you swap out the broken bits and put it back in. And in terms of gameplay, that is the closest thing that I can think of, in terms of you have each part of the dish and it has to go in a certain order in order to make the dish properly. So it's great. And my throat is really dry. So I'm still a bit sick, but
too much talking.
Yeah. Sounds lovely.
Yeah, it sounds cool.
To cap us off. But actually, to cap us off, Gerard, I'm going to throw to you for this week in the WayBack.
All right, folks. We're getting old, guys. We're getting. That's how it is.
Not me.
Ralph is immortal, everyone.
Every time you say that, you always do it with the energy of like spinning the chair around and sitting on it backwards with your hat backwards. Like, listen, gang, we're old now.
Yeah. That's how the segment works. The one thing I contribute to the show. Guys, I'll go first because this one, I feel like I manifested this for years.
I'm gonna excuse me because there's a what do you call it? A lawnmower outside my window right now. So you keep going, and I'm gonna mute my mic, and that's what's happening.
Great. Okay. So this day or week in the WayBack of gaming, for the week of August 9th is when we're recording this. I'm going to go first. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game. Now look,
man.
this...
I saw you write this down and I was mad at you.
This is a game that I played and loved and completed, and then it was gone within a couple of years, and I felt like it was like Fat Princess all over again. I was like, it went away, and no one knows how great it is, and I'm very sad. And I felt like for years and years and years, I was the one guy that was like, hey, remember Scott Pilgrim? It's a great game. Y'all should play it. And lo and behold, during the pandemic, it reappeared for all of you to play. So now you can play Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game, on most every major platform. It's a beat 'em up about the comic. It's also about the game. It's one of those weird loop things, or the movie. And in the movie, they reference the game with a little icon. So they are connected to a degree, but it's mostly inspired, obviously, by Brian Lee O'Malley's works. It's a beat 'em up that is very much focused on classic beat 'em ups. People play the game and it's hard, but people don't understand that in beat 'em ups, traditionally speaking, you don't buy things and get items. You just kind of plow through and fight stuff. But this is very much inspired by the River City franchise, which means when you buy items, you gain stats. So a lot of people always complain, oh, this game is too hard because I didn't increase my stats because I didn't know how. But if you buy items, they give you stats. Read the descriptions, folks, when you buy items in games. But that came out August 9th, I think is what I just said. No, August 10th, technically, 13 years ago, on PlayStation 3, and I believe it came out on Xbox 360 as well.
I can't believe you haven't mentioned the soundtrack.
Oh, Anamanaguchi's amazing. Holy
shit, it's so good. Another Winter was on my playlists for years. I couldn't buy the game anymore, but you can buy the soundtrack on Spotify.
Oh man, that's the kind of game that you hear like the opening trill, and I'm like, I know what stage, what level, what moment that track plays, because Anamanaguchi slaps. I've seen them perform so many times in person. They're so good. That's my game 13 years ago. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game. Let's throw it to Lucy. She's already talking about this. Lucy, what's your game?
11 years ago on August the 13th, Sleeping Dogs.
God damn, what a game.
I loved the game so much. It was so much better than it had any right to be. It was like from the cast to just the way that it took those brawler mechanics from games like the Arkham series and just made them like so cool. The brawlers are amazing. Going around, my favorite thing about it is that like the way that you would, every time you do a feat or something, it would go in your friends list and be like, oh, you narrowly dodged crashing into a car and you got this many points or whatever. And here's the next person on your friends list who's just a little bit better than you. So it's like constantly trying to get you to improve by comparing you against your friends. And I always loved that. Super great story, super well performed. I'm sad we never got another one, you know? It was really good. Like taking GTA and in some cases doing it a little bit better.
It's funny. I haven't heard anyone talk about Sleeping Dogs in so long because I have a really weird press item, and I don't know if you guys got one. I got one. It wasn't given to me. It was given from a friend of mine who was staying in my office, and then I got it, and it's been in my office for years, and I don't know what to do with it. It is a distilled like drink case that when you open it, inside it says Sleeping Dogs, and there's a bottle, and inside the bottle is a scorpion, a tarantula, and a snake all curled up in this bottle, and it just says Sleeping Dogs in the center of it.
Hell yeah. I've never even heard of that promo item before.
It's just, I have it. I've Googled it online. I haven't seen anyone really like talk about this thing. I like don't know what it's worth, but whenever anyone talks about Sleeping Dogs, I'm like, I've never played it. I've heard a lot about it, and I've got this weird fucking bottle of bugs and
got
animals
a bottle of
in it,
sleeping
but I don't
bugs.
know. Yeah,
Sorry.
that was great. Speaking of sleeping bugs, Jake, what about
boy.
you?
17 years ago in 2006, Dead Rising. The original Dead Rising released.
What?
Hell yeah. What a weird, wild game that at the time just felt so different. It felt so different from the way Frank moved, the way the combat worked, to the way the game was structured. It was anxiety inducing, but it was cool. It had a really good, unique blend of celebrating old zombie flicks, really feeling very Romero, but then also having some Japanese game dev influence with some cool quirks. And it just balanced the line between like cool, gory zombie thing with some tension and just wacky zaniness. You could dress up like Mega Man. You could steal stuff in all the different stores. I still to this day think that IO Interactive needs to make a Hitman level just in a mall because of all the opportunities. And I say that because Dead Rising was like the best game in a mall ever. And like it took advantage of all the opportunities. You go to a sporting goods store, you remember getting like a hockey stick and hitting dudes or a bowling ball. There was so much creativity to it. And it wasn't a perfect game by any means. It was weird. Some of the combat, some of the guns, the way the guns work during the boss fights, kind of weird, but it was just so unique and I love it.
Jake, it's one of my favorite games, but one of my least favorite games to complete.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because of the 7-day survivor achievement. So for those of you guys that don't know, there is a unlimited survivability mode where you are just, there's no plot, no timer ticking down, except your health is constantly draining and you have to run around the mall and eat items to keep your health full. But there's only so many items available that you can do that in because the food's not plentiful in that mode. And if you're playing on a modern console, like a PlayStation 4 or 5, which I recently did, the game is very buggy. And so you might just be in the middle of a run and poof, exploded. And that run takes legit, like, I think my video, I said it takes like 9 to 11 hours, something like that. It's rough. It's a rough one. But it has one of the coolest completion rewards in that if you kill over 53,000 zombies in a run and then end the game, worst ending, best ending, whatever, you get the Mega Man X Buster and you just get unlimited shots in it. You can like one hit kill any enemy in the game, and then it has 300 pellets, and then it breaks, and you go back to the room, and you get another one. It's so cool.
Oh my god!
Also, at the time, that was I remember playing that and being like, "Holy shit, the graphics are so good! This is crazy."
Yeah, it was a launch title for the 360.
Yeah,
it was in. It was that launch.
It was in that window.
And then
yeah.
Wasn't Dead Rising 3 a launch for the Xbox One?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Or within the launch window, and I loved it because it was not only was my first Xbox game that I owned on my Xbox, but because the Xbox has great abilities to rip CDs, I'd make my own soundtrack from the bands that I love, like Foo Fighters, System of a Down, Radiohead, and I would just make my own playlist and run around this mall and just listen to my own music. It was so fun.
Hell yeah. I was gonna say, if you're gonna go in for that achievement, they better let you listen to your own bloody music while you're doing it.
Yeah, totally. All right. Ralph, you've been dealing with the lawnmower.
The lawnmower man.
But where are you at?
How's that sound?
Great.
No,
you can barely hear it.
You can barely hear it.
You're fine.
I'm sure.
Can
you
can you hear it? It was
it
was so loud a second ago. I might have to stop.
You kind of hear it, but it sounds like someone's
okay. I'll be really quick. It's
cabinet.
No Man's Sky. 7 years ago, No Man's Sky came out, and everyone hated that game. And Sean Murray was on the Tonight Show with what's his name, or the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and he said all this shit that he shouldn't have said, and then he spent 7 years trying to make up for it, and he has, and it's a really good game now. So that's No Man's Sky. 7 years ago, baby. Good on you, Sean, and the team.
Hell yeah.
Sean Murray had that really intense like developer beard. I saw him in February and he's scaled it back. I think things are good. The game's improved. Things are good.
My favorite Sean Murray moment. Nature is healing. My favorite Sean Murray moment is when he was on the Game Awards in 2020 and he won for best ongoing game, and he didn't expect to win, and he was drinking that beer. He was like, "Thank you, I guess."
Oh yeah.
What a ledge.
That was so this week. This was that week in the WayBack. This week in gaming. Back to you, Lucy. I almost said Puppet Lucy, but you're not the puppet anymore.
I mean, I could be.
You could wrap it up as Puppet.
I could wrap it up as Puppet.
Yeah, take us home, Puppet Lucy.
You know what? I'm afraid I'm gonna have to be on camera at the same time. The illusion,
That's okay.
The illusion is shattered. But thank you everyone for watching or listening to this week's episode of the Friends Per Second podcast. Please review the show if you like it, because we like it. It's nice. It feels really weird to like.
You're weirdly good at this. Why are you so good at this?
I don't know.
You got to do one of those Muppet like synchronization singing things, where you're like.
Oh, hang on. The thing that I'm not good at is the hands. I can do the mouth. I can't do the hands.
You move with the puppet together. Like, yeah, there you go. Now you're a true Muppeteer. There you go. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Sorry, audio listeners. It's a puppet.
Sorry, but yeah, it's a puppet of me. Hang on, let me fix it. The thing is that her hair is unruly, which is like mine, and so really they've nailed this on all counts. But Jake, where can people find you?
Twitter, Instagram, Threads, kind of. At Jake Baldino, YouTube channel Jake Baldino, Game Ranks sometimes.
Gerard.
Twitch the Completionist, Twitter or X, whatever the hell you call it, Completionist, Instagram the Completionist, YouTube that one Video Gamer, because the Completionist was taken. Threads, I'm the Completionist. I'm on Blue Sky. Hanging out over there. I tweet existential dread tweets over there, and people vibe out to it, so that's fun. But yeah, my video on Blasphemous just went out today. So if you got time and you want to watch Blasphemous, I loved that Metroidvania. It's a fun one. That video should be up now. So if you made it to the end of this podcast, check it out. And I did appreciate it. Thank you.
Nice. Ralph? Oh, is it there? I think the Lawnmower Man is back.
On the chill out, that's the Lawnmower Man's back, yes.
And you can find me at Gamespot and Giant Bomb. At Lucy James Games. Jake, take us home.
I almost feel like the puppet should say it, but I'll say it. Tie your shoes and go to bed, you dang puppet.
Bye.